God, I hope this bus never stops. It was Sunday night, but I still had to go to work. Forgot to mention, I work part-time at a Chuck E. Cheese. I know what you were thinking. Working at Chuck E. Cheese is a dream job. Having fun with the kids is nothing to complain about. Wow, wow. Calm down. Hear me up and I'll prove you wrong. Mr. Brooks, the Chuck E. Cheese owner, is now my boss. Ever since I was a kid, I've always thought he was the most caring soul that spends his whole life working for children. Turns out, he's the most inhospitable one. Luckily, I'm just an apprentice, so I don't have to talk to him much. I often caught him standing in a corner, silently observing the whole thing. Not to mention, the work is always overloaded. There was always just me, Mr. Brooks' assistant, and Zane, the employee wearing a dirty old mascot suit.
What are you looking at? You're not paid standing there.
I did not have a moment's rest, but I was no doubt lucky enough to not be forced to wear the costume. For so long, I never even saw the man beneath the mascot. Zane has to talk to children and dance for them all day. What's worse, he was always under the supervision of Mr. Brooks. It's rare for children to laugh so happily these days. Maybe he comes up with something interesting. So I turned around to check it out.
What the hell?
Zane was on stage and staggered like he's drunk. He fell, then got up again, and then fell again. It goes on in the crunchy laughter of the children. The mascot shoes were so old and dirty. I froze when watching the thin red line stream down the face of the children's icon.
How could this be committed?
Since I fear the assistant can sense the lost productivity, I went about my business.
You're wearing a mascot today. Zane took an unscheduled break for no reason. And don't let Mr. Brooks know. He gets mad whenever Zane is absent.
When I was on the bus, I got a new message from the manager. What a tiring day, I sighed. Following his instructions, I arrived at the store early and entered the changing room of the other coworker. The mascot is hanging right there. I took it down and put it on.
Jesus, doesn't anyone wash this thing?
I've never smelled something so rotten. The inside of the mascot was filthy and sticky. I'm sure it was sweat and all sorts of dirt coming from that coworker. Soon, the children arrived. I wasn't used to the job, so I just stood there bouncing around on stage and letting kids laugh at me.
Thank God it's over. Hope Zane will show up tomorrow.
Around 10 p.m., I turned back to the room to put the mascot off. But before I could do anything, a voice behind me made me startled.
Why don't you come and serve me during the break like you were told yesterday?
It's Mr. Brooks. Because I don't get it. I just stand there and hold my breath. I didn't even turn to face him for fear of being revealed. But the silence did not last long.
Tomorrow is your last chance. If you want to save your sister, you must obey me until the end. What does that mean?
When I digested his words, my fear spiked.
By the way, I didn't know you could still perform after all of your toes were chopped off.
And then, the laughter fades away when Mr. Brooks leaves the room. I then quickly stripped off the disgusting mascot and rushed to the bus stop to go home. That was the last time I showed up at Chuck E. Cheese. Mr. Brooks was in jail now, and Zane, the other employee, was nowhere to be found. To be honest, I really hope Zane and his sister are doing well.
Just another Saturday night, my wife and daughter and I went to IKEA for some furniture. We wanted to prepare for our beloved child, who was already of school age. We planned to have dinner somewhere and then go shopping. When dinner was over, I told them to hang on a second and then got to the bathroom. But after seeing a long queue at the restaurant restroom, I decided to find another one. Luckily, there was a bathroom for guests downstairs.
Finally, thank God.
A guy ran over me. He must have been in an awful rush. I opened the door just 5 seconds after him to see the narrow white hallway, but that man just disappeared. I walked around but couldn't find any restrooms inside. Here came another door. This must be it, I mumbled and quickly opened it. Oh my goodness, I was surprised to see behind the door a lot of shelves with boxes, so no bathroom. I was disappointed. This was just a warehouse instead of a toilet. I turned back angrily, but in front of me was a wall. What the hell was going on? Where was the door I had just gone through? Unable to hold it any longer, I found an old empty box and peed inside of it. 15 minutes had passed since I left the table. I called my wife to help me find the way out. No signal. Things started to get out of control. I had to find a way out of here as soon as possible. I found a knife on the shelf, so I grabbed it to protect myself, then walked slowly forward. How can IKEA have such a huge warehouse? Furniture piled up here. Had anyone else gotten lost in here before? I kept going straight ahead, hoping to find the exit. It had been a while. My wife and daughter must be worried, so I kept walking on aimlessly. An hour passed. I was so scared. I screamed for help, but no one heard. I tried to use the GPS on my phone to find the location, but it didn't work without signal, like a rat caught in a trap. I was almost crazy. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of a yellow figure wearing an IKEA uniform from afar. I was saved. I'd better run to him soon, or else I would have to stay here all night since it was almost closing time. So I ran and called out, Excuse me, could you help me get out of here? But that person didn't seem to hear me. He stood there, emotionless, and turned his back on me. Pardon me, could you help? But I didn't feel better. A shiver went down my spine when I saw a faceless creature wearing an IKEA uniform. His 2 unusually large hands were hanging loose. I stepped back shakingly, but it didn't seem to notice me. I quickly crept away from there, and at that moment, I realized that more and more such creatures appeared around.
It's closing time. Please leave the store.
That announcement was like a signal for these freak creatures to be alive. They all started to move. Sensing the danger, I started running from that place. The monsters rushed towards me, holding the knife firmly in my hand. I started slashing at them repeatedly. They weren't fast, but there were so many of them, and I was soon exhausted. I felt hopeless. Perhaps I would die here this way. They were too numerous to kill all of them. Suddenly, one of them grabbed my legs, and they reached out their arms toward me. Was I ready to die? No. I thought about my family while trying to crawl out, but I was getting weaker and weaker. My hand went numb, the knife fell from my fingers, and my eyes were blurred with sweat and blood. And in front of me was just an empty wall. Wall? Wall? At that point, a door suddenly appeared in front of me, as if finding a light at the end of the path. I grabbed the knife, trying to get to the door before it disappeared. I thought I had escaped from this infinite space, but I was wrong. The door led me to another dimension. I'd just entered a loophole in IKEA. And through this distance, I saw a creature in IKEA uniform, standing there motionless, like a statue. No! No!
It's almost 11 o'clock. Hopefully they're still open.
Marble said to herself. She was on her way home when the hunger pain came. She stopped by Burger King's drive-thru to buy some food. When she pulled up to the order machine, there was no staff's welcome.
Why is it so quiet in there?
Thinking a while, she raised her voice.
Hello? Is there anybody there? I'd like to get some food.
The order board lit up, but still no response.
Hello? Can you hear me? Looks like I have to go inside to order.
She drove to the pickup counter, inside of which was an employee dressed in a Burger King mascot. He was doing something in the kitchen.
Hey you, I placed an order earlier in the drive-thru line, but no one was there, so I came inside.
Hearing her voice, the man turned around and stared at her face. His eyes were bloodshot. His face was white. He was holding a piece of fresh meat, trying to spread an industrial smile. He said,
Hello, how can I help you?
He raised his hand to adjust the paper crown on his head. Marble was too hangry to care about this man's scary look. She immediately said,
Can I order here?
Sure, of course.
Okay, can I have a regular hamburger and a strawberry shake?
Got it. It'll just be a few minutes.
15 minutes had passed. Marble was still in the car waiting.
What's wrong with this place?
She rolled down the window and called inside.
Hey! Why is it taking so long? I've been waiting for 15 minutes!
Only silence.
Fair enough. Let's go in there to see where my food is.
Marble drove to the parking lot and entered the store. The store was unusually quiet. Suddenly, she heard rustling just above her head. She looked up to the ceiling and saw that somebody was crawling in a plastic pipe.
Hey! Who's up there?
That figure suddenly stopped.
I know someone's up there!
The shadow continued to crawl until the end of the pipe, then stuck its head out. It was a man in a Burger King uniform. Before Marble could say anything, the man raised a shushing finger, telling Marble to be silent. Then he whispered, You should get out of here. Marble still didn't understand what was going on. She angrily said,
What a bunch of nonsense!
Then she walked over to the counter and peeked into the kitchen to see the mascot guy doing something. Marble loudly called out,
Hey you! What's wrong with this place?
Hearing Marble's voice, the man immediately turned around and stared at her.
Oh, it's you!
Yes, it's me. Where's my food?
With that industrial smile again, he walked towards the cash register slowly.
Are you hungry?
Yes! I'm starving! Bring me my food!
Just a second.
He turned around, walked into the kitchen, and grabbed a hamburger with his hand.
Here you go. A regular hamburger, right?
Marble suddenly trembled when she saw the hamburger in his hand. It was not an ordinary burger. Between the two buns was a human hand still bleeding. At this moment, Marble suddenly remembered the employee crawling in the pipe earlier. She turned her shaking head to look at the pipe in the ceiling. Just then, the Burger King man yanked her by the hair and smashed her head against the cash register.
Where are you looking? Aren't you going to take the burger?
Marble cried and begged.
Please! Let me go!
Eat your burger.
While he spoke, the crazy Burger King man stuffed the burger into her mouth. Marble tried to resist, but the guy laughed and forced her to eat the human hand burger.
Help! Please, help!
Marble pleaded for help from the man inside of the pipe but got no answer.
No one can help you. No one! Now eat your hamburger! Now eat your hamburger!
She had no more strength to resist and soon fainted. He grabbed her by the
No
hair
one can
and
help
dragged her
you.
into the kitchen. At this time, the other man looked down from the pipe and desperately said, "I'm sorry." Marble burst into tears and passed out. The next morning, the police received the report from Marble's family. They went to Burger King only to find 2 victims dead in a state of disfigurement, including Marble. Some of her body parts were scattered in the oven, and some were found in a blender. According to the employee in the pipe, the murderer killed the original employee wearing the mascot, then put on that suit himself, entered the staff area, and massacred the employees on that shift. Since then, no matter how hard the police tried, they never captured that Burger King murderer. But someone said that they could see a figure, a Burger King mascot, walking around at 11 o'clock at night. A waiter brought the food out. That sandwich seemed so alluring. And then I took a bite. Oh my gosh, it was, how to say, so divine. It tasted so different from the other sandwiches I tried before. I couldn't help devouring it. Just after a few minutes, the food boxes were empty. Oh no, oh no, look what I just did. Guilt quickly engulfed me. I was scared and frustrated, and then ran out of the store. That night, I had a high fever and terrible nausea, so I rushed to the bathroom. Strangely enough, I didn't vomit, but instead coughed violently. And then, from my mouth, I pulled out a feather. And when I looked in the mirror, I discovered that I had white hairs on my face, and they felt very itchy. I picked them up. Ouch! Were these hairs growing out from me?
Michael, are you okay?
My mother nervously called at the door. I'm fine. I didn't want my mom to know all of this. I gritted my teeth and endured it, tried to pull out the hairs one by one, even though my face was bleeding. I shouldn't have eaten it. I shouldn't have eaten it. After getting rid of the hairs, I went to bed and prepared to sleep. I hid those chicken feathers under the pillow. The next morning, I woke up tired. I yawned, but realized my voice was different. Okay, wait, what happened to my throat? I screamed, but the only sound that came out was a chicken croaking. I panicked and ran to the bathroom. Oh my God, my head had turned into a chicken's head. I cried.
Michael, what's in there? Are you okay?
My mother banged on the door. How could I let my mother see this form? But she kept banging on the door nervously. I panicked, put on my hat, and ran out of the room. I turned into a monster! I broke down, sobbed, but only heard the chicken croaking. I dared not raise my head to see people. As I ran across the Chick-fil-A store, the smell of fried chicken invited me in again. I didn't dare to speak, but only pointed at the menu with my sleeve. No one had seen my monstrous appearance. My delicious dish was brought out. I was about to eat when a staff member accidentally spilled a glass of water on me. So I reflexively took off my hat. She saw my appearance and shouted. Monster. Everyone in there started to yell.
Monster! Monster!
Those eyes made me panic. I was so scared, so dizzy that I could barely stand. I'm a monster! I rushed out of the Chick-fil-A store in a panic.
Hey! Please wait!
I couldn't hide my horrible appearance. People's eyes made my heart break.
Monster.
I was about to turn into a chicken. It was my mother.
Michael? Michael, where are you? Where are you?
She sounded so scared and worried. I wished I could call her, wished I could tell her what happened. But what came out of my mouth was just... And then when I was in despair, I didn't even notice that I was out in the middle of the road. I woke up to find myself in the hospital. Panicked, I raised my hand to touch my face. My whole face was bandaged. Mommy? Dan has been a big fan of Chuck E. Cheese ever since he was a child. He often watched horror stories on YouTube about Chuck E. Cheese chain stores. Sometimes those stories were told to be based on a true story. And of course, he was always curious to find out if those stories were true.
It's nice to be here late at night. When the machines are down and families are gone, you can get a Chuck E. Cheese token.
Dan stood in front of Chuck E. Cheese restaurant, looking at his phone with anticipation. He looked around carefully while forming in his head a plan to sneak in there at 3 a.m. In the YouTube video he was watching, there was a reference to the Chuck E. Cheese token. The video owner claimed that he found it in the management room thanks to an animatronic. So the plan was set. He must find an animatronic. After a while, Dan got to a dark hallway. He suddenly felt like someone was watching from behind. Turning around, Dan was startled to see the Chuck E. Cheese mascot standing there. It looked old and very strange with its round, fat body and dirty fur. Thinking it was the restaurant's staff, Dan cautiously took a step back. The mascot also stepped toward him without saying a word.
So weird.
Dan thought as he squinted at the moving creature. His heart was beating fast, and his mind was trying to come up with as many excuses as possible, just in case they caught him. And then, the mascot suddenly reached out with its hand toward Dan. Dan reflexively put his hand forward in self-defense, but the mascot had no intention of harm. Dan looked closely into the mascot's hand to see a red hard card with the Chuck E. Cheese logo in there. His eyes widened in surprise.
Don't play at the machines until after dark. Although it's definitely more fun at night when everybody is already sleeping at home at 3 a.m.
It was true. The rumor in the videos was true. Dan looked at the card in the mascot's hand and took it after a moment's hesitation. Then, with great joy, he thanked the mascot and quickly left. Now Dan was standing in the front of the entrance and trying to figure out how to get in. His watch pointed exactly at 3 o'clock. The door suddenly opened, and the mascot, Chuck E. Cheese, appeared and waved for Dan to come in. He was so jittery, but decided to step inside. The inside of the store was pitch black. All the gaming machines were off.
Now then, how to start?
But the mascot disappeared before Dan finished his sentence. Dan felt a little scared, but he couldn't quit here. He turned on the flashlight and continued to go deeper. After he took a few more steps, suddenly the screen at the stage lit up to guide the way. His heart was pumping so fast. Finally, it was time to lift the veil about all of this mysterious stuff. He followed the instructions and reached the corridor shortly thereafter. At the end of the hallway was a huge door with a magnetic lock. Dan took out the red card previously given to him by the mascot and swiped it. The door opened.
Yes!
When he stepped through the door, a horrible odor broke out, causing Dan to immediately cover his nose. It was a large room full of gaming machines like the store outside. Those machines looked old with patchy stains and rust, but seemed to work fine. A faint whisper from the darkness startled Dan. He followed the sound. The nearer he got, the clearer the sound was. And when the 4 mascots appeared in the dark corner of the room, Dan was completely petrified. They looked very monstrous and creepy. On the costumes crisscrossed with stitches, the fur was thick, dirty, and messy. There were patches of exposed skin.
Please, help us.
Oh my God! They were all humans! And those were not normal mascot costumes, but real human skin. Someone had sewn patches of skin and fur on those bodies to make them the living mascots.
Let's butter up the pizza with a special butter sauce.
Dan felt a quiver down his spine. When he turned around, Charles the mascot came with a sharp knife in his hand. Dan fortunately dodged the slashes of the knife, but still suffered an injury to his hand. The mascot kept swinging the knife. Panicked, Dan rushed towards the door with all his strength before getting stabbed with the knife. He rushed out of the restaurant, heading forward without looking back. Luckily, he reached the police station before losing consciousness from blood loss. According to Dan's testimony, the police came to investigate the scene. They found the secret chamber and the victims that were turned into mascots. They were the investors who planned to replace the restaurant with a big hotel. The owner was arrested after that. He was the one that wore the mascot. He loved the restaurant insanely. The owner decided to kidnap and punish the investors after they threatened to destroy his restaurant. And of course, he was also the mastermind of the horror story in Chuck E. Cheese 3 a.m.
And Nick met each other at the Camping Lovers Club. Since then, they have always been together. At the end of October 2021, the couple went camping together in a remote and out-of-the-way area to celebrate Jack's new RV.
Are you sure you know the road?
It's been 3 days on the road, but Lucy and Jack haven't arrived at the destination yet. The place is deep in the woods and was barely discovered, so it's quite hard to find the path. Yeah, Jack said in a certain voice. According to his plan, they would be there in 30 minutes. The luxuriant trees spread out almost to the middle of the lane. It's so dark that it's even harder for Jack to see. Suddenly, both Jack, Lucy, and their belongings go queasy. They've just crashed something very big. Jack quickly pushes the brake. The wheels slip a long way.
What the hell was that?
Lucy screams while Jack sweated with fear. It looks like a human body. Lucy freezes when she hears from Jack. After a while, they decide to take the flashlight to check.
Oh, shoot.
It seems like Jack was right. Under the wheels, they find a long bloodstain. Jack and Lucy follow that bloodstain. 1 meter, then 2 meters. Their hearts bounce faster as they step closer. It's so close now. I think it's alive, Jack said. At that moment, the body suddenly jumps and scares the couple startled. Lucy heaves a sigh of relief when she finds that the body is a deer. And so does Jack. For a moment, he has thought he would go to jail.
Wait, this deer looks so strange.
Lucy sits down to see the deer better. It seems to be heavily injured before the accident. Its body is covered with blood, and the guts are coming out. The accident can't do that to a deer. But Jack doesn't care. He hastily says, "Let's get back to the van. I can feel that we are almost there." Lucy listens to Jack, gets back to the van, and they start the van. After moving for a while, they suddenly see a strange man who is asking for a ride. Jack slows down the vehicle so that Lucy can see the man more clearly. Gosh, his face is so disgusting. His clothes are like filthy rags. He doesn't even wear slippers. Lucy doesn't feel so well, so she shouts,
Go, go, go!
Finally, Jack doesn't stop the vehicle, as if they just keep driving. "Here it is! I told ya!" Lucy is so happy because they finally arrive. The raw and primitive scene is exactly what they expected. Because she wants to save fuel for the trailer, Lucy suggests finding some wood for a campfire. Then they split. On her way, Lucy finds a tattered tent. Sometimes she finds some pieces of dead animals, but she only thinks that it's normal when wild animals can be around here. Soon, she comes back with wood in her hand.
Why is Jack taking so long? That's strange.
Lucy thinks. It's been a while, but Jack hasn't come back, so Lucy decides to rest on the trailer while waiting for Jack. But soon comes the sleepiness. Lucy quickly falls asleep. Lucy has no idea how long she has slept, but suddenly in her dream, she hears someone mumbling and rummaging in the trailer.
Jack, you're back?
Uh-huh. Lucy hears Jack's answers, so she keeps on sleeping. But then, suddenly, after a while, she smells a stench. More wondrously, her face turns itchy and wet. Lucy slowly opens her eyes. What is in front of her eyes is freaking her out. A few centimeters away from her face is a disgusting face. His eyes are glazing over as he's staring at her. His mouth is red and his drool splatters. At this moment, Lucy realizes the itchy and wet feelings on her face were from his licking. Lucy panics. She pushes the man and runs to the door. Lucy runs into the woods. In the dark, she hears the man's steps as he is right behind. Lucy keeps running and running. Suddenly, she trips over something that makes her fall down. Lucy looks around and finds her surroundings sticky, slimy, sloppy. When her eyes get used to the dark, she dazes.
Jack, are you okay?
But Jack doesn't move.
Jack?
Lucy looks down. Jack's guts are all out, like he has been ripped off. Lucy is so shocked that she doesn't even realize the psycho has been behind her.
Join your friend.
When she is hopeless, Lucy remembers the knife hanging on the side when she was picking the wood. So, as quickly as lightning, gets the knife and waves it around.
Get off before I call the police!
She seems to hurt the psycho because after that she hears him scream in pain. Then, all of a sudden, Lucy rushes to the RV, locks the door, and drives away. The RV runs on the road, quickly leaving the freaky area behind. Lucy's hands are shaking and her heart is pounding. Her head is full of questions. Who is that psycho? Why did he kill Jack? And at that moment, for no reason, Lucy recalls whispering in her dream. But this time, the sound is clearer than before. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Subconsciously, Lucy steps on the brakes, but the vehicle goes even faster. That's when she realizes that she has lost control. The trailer car kept running in her desperation.
An overnight fire claims one life in Escambia County. According to police, crews were called out to the crime scene just before 1 a.m. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. The victim has not yet been identified.
This story happened in April, a week before Easter, several years ago. I was 17 years old back then. My parents were away for the weekend, so I invited my best friend Haley to come over for a sleepover. While waiting for Haley, I turned on the TV to pass the time. Suddenly, my dog Max barked at the door. Max was a friendly dog and rarely barked like that, so I was quite surprised. I opened the window curtain to look out. Gosh, there's a man right on the other side of the door. I couldn't see his face clearly because it was dark, but he was wearing dirty clothes and a bunny mascot on his head. His creepy look gave me a shiver. The stranger just stood there, facing the front door. Then, suddenly, he turned his head towards the window. Only then, I realized that he was holding a sharp axe in his hand. Our eyes met. I was so scared that I quickly closed the curtain. Then, the pounding from the man as well as Max's bark got even more fierce. The doorknob was twisted repeatedly, but since I had already locked it, he couldn't do anything but leave. I was still shivering, hugging Max behind the door. Just a few minutes later, I heard a car drive into my block. Luckily, it was Haley. She seemed so calm, so I asked,
Did you meet anyone on the way home?
Haley didn't understand what happened and shook her head. When I told her about it, she burst out laughing and said,
Haha, you're such a coward. Maybe it's some Easter freaks trying to tease you.
Phew, maybe she was right. Haley brought a lot of snacks for the sleepover. We watched movies until late at night before going to bed. Before going to my room, I didn't forget to check the front door. Locked! But as soon as the TV was turned off, Haley turned to me. Shh. I listened. Gosh, the footsteps again. I looked at Haley, and she nodded, indicating she heard the same thing. The footsteps bounced from the back of the house. He's heading to the kitchen door. I trembled.
Oh no. I was going to let Max out for a while and then lock the door. So I forgot. The kitchen door is not locked.
Fast as lightning, the shadow of Bunny's head appeared in the window. And just like that, the knob was turned and the door was wide open.
Run upstairs now! Go, go!
As I was frozen with fear, Haley shouted. I held the phone and carried Max to the bedroom. Haley and the Easter freak were just a few steps away from me. My mind went blank. I dashed into the bedroom. When there was only the last step left, Haley tripped on the last step and fell to the ground. I was about to rush out when she jumped up and yelled,
Lock the door! I'm going to your parents' room!
I did as she said, latched the door, and also heard the door close from my parents' room. Trembling, I dialed 911.
It's 911. What's your emergency?
Please help us. There's a murderer.
Then, I suppressed my fear and read the home address to the operator. But at that moment, I heard Haley's voiceless scream. Only then did I remember, in this house, only my bedroom door had a lock. I heard an axe hitting the floor and Haley screaming for help and crying and screaming, but my whole body stiffened, unable to move. And then, everything fell into an eerie stillness. I could even hear my heart pounding in my chest.
I'm going to die. I'm going to die. No!
The door to my room suddenly attacked. I accidentally turned on the speaker to hear.
The police will be at your address in a minute. Try to hold out.
The bunny man must have heard it too, because he stopped destroying the door. Then he turned his back and dragged the body of Haley, my poor friend, out of the house and disappeared in the dark.
Even though I was the survivor, I had been traumatized for a long time, and that was why I ended up in a mental hospital.
Good job, Lila. You are now eligible for hospital discharge. If you need anything, just contact us.
No, Lila! No, 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 Lila! Ah!
My name is Roy, and this story happened to me many years ago. It was a December night. Mr. Hudson, my neighbor, had to go to work, so he hired me as the babysitter. Since I needed extra income, I agreed. When I got there, Mr. Hudson was about to leave. He also gave me a little rundown on what to do with Riley, his 5-year-old daughter. Riley turned out to be very sensitive. Lately, she had been having nightmares and was so scared that she even screamed in her sleep.
Well, I bought her a new Kissy Missy at first. Riley loved it so much. A few days passed and she changed. Every time she sees it, she screams.
Also, Mr. Hudson told me to stay in his room after tucking Riley so that she could feel at ease. Yes, sure, I can do that, I said, and waved goodbye to him. Around 10 o'clock, I took Riley up to the bedroom and was immediately blown away. When I heard about the Kissy Missy stuffed animal, I didn't think it was this big. As I was tucking Riley in, she seemed scared and still wouldn't close her eyes.
Sam, I'm scared. Kissy Missy keeps staring at me,
she said, like this thing can make its own decision. That's what I thought. But I still need to find a way to comfort her. It's all in your head, Riley. Kissy Missy is so cute. And besides, well, look how soft its fur is. She insisted on not letting me go. Okay, what about I'll take Kissy Missy to the other room and let your door open. Then whatever happens, you just scream and I'll be there. The move worked. Riley slowly closed her eyes. I made sure she's asleep, then leaving the door wide open and dragging Kissy Missy to the next room. Jesus, how much is this thing worth? It's way heavier than I thought. It took me a while to drag it to Mr. Hudson's room. I sighed in frustration and went to bed to watch some TV. For some reason, Kissy Missy gave me shivers. Was it looking at me like that before? No wonder Riley has been having nightmares. But then, I laughed to myself because of my rich imagination. I wake up in the middle of the night. The TV was still on. I turned to the corner of the room to find out that Kissy Missy was no longer there. Wow! Riley was unexpected, huh? I decided to go downstairs and make a sandwich. Riley's door was closed. She must have sneaked into my room to get her Kissy Missy while I slept. I headed to the kitchen and gave my phone a quick check. A few missed calls, all from Mr. Hudson's number. Even though it was 12 o'clock at night, I still called back to make sure everything was okay.
Oh, nothing's urgent. I just called to check.
I told him everything was great and he didn't need to worry. Then, Mr. Hudson needs to get back to work. Before ending the call, I joked to him, Riley literally fell in love with Kissy Missy again, Mr. Hudson. It took me a lot to drag it to your room, but Riley sneaked in to take it back. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. But somehow, I knew my neighbor hadn't hung up yet. Seeming to realize something, his voice turned strangely urgent.
Get Riley now. Get her, and you both get out of that house.
I couldn't digest it.
Riley never ever wakes up in the middle of the night. Never.
Just then I heard screams. The fear spiked. I dropped my phone and rushed upstairs, but it was too late. The window was wide open, and Riley was nowhere to be found. Kissy Missy was collapsing right next to the bed. fur sticking out of its back, revealing an empty space inside.
Happened in summer several years ago. That day, I discovered a painting titled Mrs. Nightfriend while cleaning Lily's room. It was about Lily and a woman with extremely scary bloodshot eyes looked, surrounded by red, orange, yellow spots that looked like fire. The problem was that I had never heard of any friends from her before. I asked Lily about her new friend right at dinner. Lily happily showed me the picture. I asked her name.
Mrs. Knight, look here.
She looked over and pointed to the name in the corner of the picture. I asked her about the red eyes.
Because they were burned, Mommy.
Lily said innocently as she finished her dinner. The answer creeped me out, but I just simply thought that she had a good imagination.
So I can meet your friends?
I looked at her tenderly. She suddenly froze. Her face turned darkened. She stared at me with her big, beautiful eyes.
Do you really want to see her?
My heart suddenly pounded, and I nodded slightly.
Let me ask her first.
She finished her words and left the dining room. Since then, I felt the paranormal things happening in the house. For example, the sound of footsteps walking upstairs, or the crunching from the kitchen. But every time I went to check, I just found nothing. I thought it was some strange animal entering, because there were actually many trees and bushes out surrounding our house. That night, I brought some fruit to Lily's room. Then I heard her whispering to someone. There was a loud bang when I was about to knock on the door. I panicked and quickly turned the doorknob, but it was locked from the inside. I banged on the door, panicking, calling out,
Lily, what's happening? Open the door!
After a while, Lily opened the door. I looked inside but didn't find anything suspicious. Lily just stood there, bewildered, and looked at me. I asked her what happened. She said with a frown,
Mrs. Knight, she doesn't want to see you, Mom.
Then her gaze gradually shifted in another direction. Looking at her dirty hands, I guessed that she was just trying to distract me from punishing her. I sighed, took her to the bathroom to wash her hand and face, while warning her from playing with dirt before going to bed ever again. I finished taking out the trash, then came inside. That was when I saw Lily standing on the edge of the stairs. What was weird was that Lily was blindfolded, and she looked like she was going to fall. I worriedly yelled, which startled her. She took off her blindfold and smiled at me. She told me that she was playing hide and seek with Mrs. Knight, and asked me to join her, and promised to let me meet her mysterious friend.
Now we hide, and you seek, okay?
She said, handing me the blindfold. I put it on, then counted from 1 to 10. The sound of pounding footsteps faded away. After that, I left my spot, starting to find her. I guessed that she was hiding in the closet, so I went there to find her. I called her name, then I heard applause from her bedroom as a response. I followed the wall, opened the door, and walked in.
Boo!
I opened the closet, but it was completely silent inside. The sound of clapping by my ears made me jump. My heart suddenly beat so fast.
Mommy?
Lily called me. I quickly took off my blindfold and ran towards her.
Why don't you go find me?
She looked at me reproachfully.
I thought you were hiding in the closet.
I explained.
So you found Mrs. Knight?
She seemed surprised. I was a little startled, but before I could react, she pulled me and said,
This time, Mrs. Knight will find. We must hide carefully.
After she finished talking, she giggled, and while counting, she pulled me out of the room. I hid in the kitchen and waited anxiously, but still no one came looking for me, only the sound of footsteps outside the living room. It was Lily's voiceless scream. I quickly jumped out. The scene in front of my eyes terrified me. A tall person was carrying Lily on her shoulder. I realized it was Mrs. Knight in Lily's picture. My daughter screamed and struggled. I panicked. Without thinking much, I pushed the woman down. Only then did I see her face. I was terrified. Her face was full of crimson scars that huddled together. Especially her eyes were red, and her lips were mixed with the scars, revealing only a wheezing hole. She went crazy, pushed me down to the floor, and rushed to strangle me. Lily stood beside her begging, but she squeezed even tighter. I struggled and grabbed a hard object on the floor, quickly hitting the woman on her head. When she stepped back, I hugged Lily and ran into the small storage room, locking the door. The woman screamed and banged on the door repeatedly. I was afraid to hug Lily in my arms, trembling to dial 911. The woman couldn't open the door, so she left. Before I could breathe in relief, I smelled gasoline, then burning. Smoke began to pour in from the outside. Soon the room was filled with smoke. I tried to hug Lily tightly, hoping she wouldn't breathe in the smoke. I could feel myself fading away. At the same time, I heard police sirens outside. Mrs. Knight was arrested while holding a gas can. Turns out it was a man with a mental illness. He used to be the owner of the house. Mrs. Knight had a 5-year-old child and loved her very much. But after discovering that she wasn't his, but his wife and her lover, he went mad and set the house on fire. The fire killed his wife and daughter and burned his entire face. According to the police, he had been living in our house for a month. I shuddered to discover that it was around the time when we moved in. Then I recalled the memory of the woman, the sparks of fire in Lily's painting, and the name Mrs. Nightfriend. And I suddenly realized that day was the same day when he set the fire a few...
In New York, it's difficult. I've searched all the forums and hunted down every street, but still couldn't find a decent place for less than $3,000. Just when I felt my luck was running out, I came across an advertisement that to me was a bargain. The building is located on the edge of the city and not many people pass by it. That apartment is on the ground floor with a bedroom, a kitchen, and a tiny living room. The only thing that I don't like about the apartment is the pile of weird furniture left by the previous owner. The curtains, lanterns, wall decorations, or even the sofa sets all look old and discolored. I once tried to sit on the leather chair, and to be honest, the feeling of it is so strange, cold and slippery. What's worse, they all smell like the disinfectant you could smell at the hospital.
Is the previous owner a creep or something?
When thinking about the workload and money I have to spend on redecorating the apartment. For the first few weeks, I simply put a mattress in the middle of the house to sleep since the moving process cost me a bundle. One day, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep immediately as soon as I laid down on my back. I don't know what time it was, but when I woke up, it was already dawn. My whole body was drenched in sweat. I was so weak that I couldn't feel my own breath. The nightmare was so real. I saw dozens, sometimes even countless dark figures with distorted, disgusting faces surrounding me. They clung to me. I was in a complete state of panic, yet I couldn't make a sound.
What the heck was that?
I thought it was all just a dream, but deep down, I know it's more than that. Whenever I lie down and am about to sleep, that dream comes back and haunts my night. The only way to get rid of it is keeping myself awake all the time. After 1 week, I felt like I had sleep paralysis. Sometimes, I see a disfigured woman in a white dress, always standing at the end of my bed. She kept squealing shrill screams and scratching herself. Sharp black fingernails continued to expose the flesh, and drops of blood dropped to the floor. The drops of blood are not the usual red color. but they are black and have a foul odor. Still, sweat broke out my body, but I couldn't move. Then I noticed the woman pointing to the corner of the house. They repeated the action a few times before disappearing.
What? There's nothing wrong with that house. The contract is clear. No rent refunds.
After that, the owner hung up on the phone. So that's it. I can't get out of here soon. I decided to pour the rest of my money to eliminate the creepy vibe of this apartment. Room makeover is such a hard task. I had to move furniture all the way to the center, remove curtains, strip floors, and repaint walls, and so on. One evening, after peeling off the bedroom carpet, I discovered a broken piece of wood on the floor. So I carefully removed them, and I saw a small notebook with different names and dates. That looked so old and dirty. Curiosity got the best of me. I Google one of those names, and the results bring goosebumps to all over my body. A bunch of old news articles about a missing person popped up. The name and date of the disappearance of that person and all others perfectly match what's written in the notebook.
Oh my God, what is it?
I trembled with fear. Could it be the previous owner killed all of these people? I rushed out of that damn apartment and headed to the nearest police station I could find. The police then told me what I found might be the clue connecting the mysterious disappearances together. So they sent out the crime scene team. I was only allowed to stand outside the door when they investigated the house. Suddenly, I overheard one text saying,
Yup, it's human. Human? What's human?
And here's what I got.
Sir, have you thrown any furniture in this apartment? We need to collect all of them.
When my brain processed the information, he continued,
The curtains, lanterns, and everything here are made of human skin. All were probably peeled off from the missing...
I could feel nothing but blind terror. Could it be all those dark figures with terrible shapes were the missing people the police said? Could it be that girl in the white dress scares me every night was one of them? No.
It was Christmas Eve. I took my son, Tom, into the bedroom at around 10 o'clock. I gave him a cheek kiss. My little boy was lying in bed, resisting his sleepiness to tell me stories. Mummy, I threw a big snowball in Mr. Ben's face this evening. Tom isn't a mischievous boy. But this was not the first time I heard some kinds of stories like this. Since today was a holiday, I didn't scold him, just asking, did he get mad at you? I noticed the excitement in his eyes. No, Mummy, he was just joking that he would come back for a resentment. What a relief. Mr. Ben was our friendly and decent neighbor. If it wasn't him, Tom probably got in big trouble. Okay, close your eyes now if you want Santa Claus to come. I'll be back before you wake up. I promise. And I turned off the light and gently closed the door. It was just Tom and me the whole time, so I feel very guilty when I have to work on Christmas Eve. I forgot to mention I'm a nurse, and nights like Christmas would make me busier than ever. I locked the door and left the house at 11:15. Didn't forget to leave a glass of milk and some cookies on the table. As expected, I was so tied up that I didn't even have time to check my phone. It's already 7 a.m. Tom probably has been sleeping. I unlocked my phone to see a lot of missed calls. All are calls from home that were sent at 12 o'clock at night. Oh no! Knowing something was off, I rushed to my apartment. The door was only half closed. I was so sure I had locked it. There was snow on the doorknob and the floor. Tom, are you awake? He didn't answer. That's when I noticed the glass of milk was spilled on the table, pouring onto the carpet that Tom loved. I called his name, but still, when I got back, it was the dead silence. I glanced around. The apartment had stopped at the bedroom door. Oh my God! The door, it had a huge hole in the middle and was littered with traces of snow. Tom, not having enough time to think, I rushed into the room. It's like there had been a snowball fight everywhere. Fear and panic swelled within me. I rummaged through the closet under the bed to find nothing. There's still one place I didn't check. I brushed the snow off the bed, but still couldn't see my son. Under the snow there was a large pool of blood instead. Someone left a note. It read, "Tom is not a good boy. We always find wonder under the Christmas tree, don't we?" Trembling with anxiety and fear, I headed to the corner of the living room. The Christmas tree was flashing with lights. That's when I noticed bedside the gift boxes that my mother and I had prepared. There was also a box wrapped in red paper that I had not seen before. It was so big that a kid could fit. A kid like Tom. Tom. Never in my life had I experienced such horror. I stepped in the living room and shakingly opened the lid of the gift box. Inside was chest-deep snow and my baby boy. Tom couldn't move. Mouth was overstuffed with snow, and his eyes were red and watery.
There was a rumor. No matter what you do, or what your purpose is, never stay at a Chuck E. Cheese till the 5th night. Because if you do, you will go crazy, or even die for no reason.
Nonsense! Stephen laughed at the story. He thought this rumor was stupid.
So, are you still gonna take the job?
The manager asked. Yeah, Stephen shrugged.
Remember, after checking the electrical system, you better go back to the security room. Don't stay outside for too long,
the manager said while handing the keys to Stephen before leaving. On the first day of work, Stephen tried to show himself as a responsible employee. The first duty was to check the electrical system. Chuck E. Cheese at night was so damn quiet. The dim light made it hard for Stephen to see things clearly, so he had to use the phone's flashlight. Well, it's broken. Stephen flicked on the broken light switch in the hallway. Then he decided to go to the electrical system room through the dining table area. How did it get here? Stephen was surprised to see the mascot of Charles standing in the corner of the room. He then pushed it to the backstage. After checking the electrical system, Stephen returned to the security room. So boring. He leaned on the chair, sipping hot coffee and looking at the security camera. Here came the very first nuisance. What the hell? Stephen noticed a guy in uniform sweeping the arcade. Hey, it's late. Stop cleaning. You can do it tomorrow, Stephen said over the microphone. But that man ignored his words. Hey! Stephen lost his patience. Damn it! He said angrily and decided to walk over to the arcade. Did you hear what I said? He mumbled. But when Stephen got there, the arcade was empty. There were only the game machines covered with dust in the corner. Lucky for you. Stephen went back to the monitoring room, thinking that the man had finished his job and left. This light work really bored Stephen. Even though he had finished a cup of coffee, he still couldn't resist the sleepiness. So Stephen closed his eyes and fell asleep quickly. The first 4 nights had passed peacefully. And soon came the 5th night. Stephen continued his boring job, walking around the store, checking the electrical system and locking all of the doors. Then he returned to the security room and turned on the cameras one by one. Each area appeared in sequence on the screen. The cleaning staff in the arcade, restroom, play area, all silent at night.
You don't need to walk around, just stay in the security room tonight.
Stephen suddenly was reminded of the manager's words. But he had been on duty for 4 nights in a row and didn't see anything dangerous. Stephen thought while clicking to view the camera. Ah! Oh, shoot! Stephen was startled when he saw Charles's face covering the entire screen. Who the hell did this? Stephen angrily went to check the dressing room. But when he got there was no one in the dressing room. All animatronics were gone. What the hell? Stephen returned to the stage to check, but there was nothing either.
Hi, player! Are you ready for the fun night?
Stephen, startled, looked around. Hey, this isn't funny at all, he shouted.
It's time for the hunt night!
The room turned red with the deafening alarm bells ringing. Stephen covered his ears. The sound hurt his head so badly. He quickly ran towards the door but was stopped by Charles the mouse, which held a bloody axe in its hand. Stephen panicked and ran off to the other side. The dark corridor was lit by the dim flashlights. Stephen ran in panic. The heavy footsteps with the evil laughter of Charles and the other mascots were right behind him. Ellen the chicken threw the axe but missed him. He kept running away. Stephen was now hiding in the dressing room among the dusty and furry mascots. He tried to breathe softly so those horrible things wouldn't find him. Heavy footsteps resounded in the air along with eerie laughter. Those creatures were very close, and they were hunting Stephen. The animatronic's attention was drawn to the wardrobe, so they slowly approached. There was no one inside. Stephen managed to escape the dressing room before the robots found him. He panicked and ran towards the exit, but it was locked. Damn it! Stephen ran to the security room again, but no matter how hard he tried, the door wouldn't open. No, please God, no! Stephen muttered desperately. Stephen kept running away, but this time the robots blocked all the aisles. They came closer and closer. While panicked Stephen slowly stepped back, he suddenly hit something. That was Charles the mouse. No! The hunting night ended and a new day came. The mascots returned to the backstage, closing their eyes again as if nothing had happened. He was so excited to see the gloomy woods ahead.
If you get lost, just follow the rope. It'll show you the way out.
The tour guide said when the car stopped at the foot of the mountain.
It's very beautiful and deadly.
He tried to get as much footage as he could before it got dark.
So there's no one here, just us.
Ben panned the camera around the woods. The 100-year-old soaring tree trunk surprised and attracted Ben. Well, it was not as scary as people said. He kept following the small path until he came across a tree with a piece of paper on it. It was a missing person poster, but it wasn't the only one. Dozens of these posters were pinned on every tree around. The number was no less than 10.
Oh my God, they're all missing.
Ben moved the camera closer to the posters. Skimming through the information, he realized that the victims all went missing on the 13th day of the month.
All these people came from different places, but they all disappeared on the 13th.
Ben turned impatient. Were these pieces of paper real, or were they just some practical jokes? If the information was true, something terrible must have happened. Then who was the one to post these papers? If they were fake, then who would make this terrifying prank? Could it be some kind of monstrous ritual?
Guys, what do you think? I think this might be some kind of ritual.
Oh, shoot! He almost cried when he noticed a figure sitting on the logs. Suddenly, the thing turned around to look at him. Its shining eyes startled him. Scared, Ben immediately took the camera and ran away. And apparently, the creature was chasing him. He kept running and running without looking back. Even when he slipped, he didn't quit running. When he reached the empty lot, he stopped, held his breath. Now he barely heard any sound of that thing.
Guys, I thought it was a bear or something.
Ben decided to spend the night on this vacant field. He set up a small tent and gathered dry wood to build a fire. The light calmed him down a bit. Tired as he was, he didn't intend to take a nap in case that bear would come back and attack him. To combat the body slump, Ben took out his camera and looked at the photos. After a while, he fell asleep. When he woke up, it was almost morning. Ben packed up his things and got up to find his way back. However, the path led him back to the empty ground where he had camped last night. Strange. He looked around and kept walking, and he was back in the same place again.
Impossible!
Ben decided to carve a mark on every tree he passed. But whatever he did, it still led him to that same place.
Damn it!
Ben cursed angrily, then turned in another direction. He didn't remember the guide's instructions.
Follow the rope. It will take you out of the forest.
Exhausted, Ben wandered hopelessly through the woods.
Is anybody there? Help me, please!
But the echo was only his own scream. Ben tried to locate the direction without paying attention to the ground. He stepped on a bear trap. His left foot clamped like it was crushed under the sharp, serrated teeth. Ben painfully tried to get his foot out of the trap, but however hard he tried, more blood flowed out and he could feel the pain devouring his brain.
Help! Help!
He could only scream out for help, but in the middle of the pine barrens, no one could hear his plea. Just as he was about to faint, he heard footsteps behind him. He was overjoyed, thinking he could be saved.
Oh, please! Help me!
He almost broke down, but the man didn't make a peep, just walked towards him, instead of helping Ben remove the trap. At this point, Ben noticed his brown fur coat, which was very similar to the fur on the monster he'd seen last night. But it was too late. The man raised the axe.
Why me?
When Ben was closing on his death, he realized that that day was the 13th.
No! No! No!
The disappearance of the male YouTuber vlogger Benjamin, or Ben, is receiving enormous attention. There are a lot of rumors surrounding the tragic incident.
That nightmare keeps coming back again and again. It was Friday night. I had a night shift at a 7-Eleven gas station. I used to be a medical student. I didn't have any financial support, so I went to work part-time to earn extra income. I usually didn't garner as many customers as the day shift would. Maybe just the occasional night owls or creeps that would stop by. Let me in! Let me in! Let me in! Dealing with such guys, I usually locked the window and ignored it. However, such incidents didn't happen often, so I didn't mind either. $30 for pump 3, please. It was Lisa, a patron that I've been keeping an eye on for quite some time. Lisa must have been assigned to work the night shift like me. After putting the money in the drawer, I locked eyes with her to observe more of this woman's charm. Lisa was refueling, but her gaze was elsewhere. And next to her, I saw the same homeless guy approaching her. His eyes were bloodshot and twitchy. This freak again. Son of the... Before I could finish my sentence and run out to warn Lisa, I froze. The man yanked the gas pump from the vehicle and sprayed her with gasoline. I never saw that coming. I quickly called 911 and was about to help, but as soon as I reached the door, I knew it was all too late. The man lit, and Lisa's gasoline-soaked body was literally on fire. Hello, what's your emergency? The other end of the line picks up the phone, but I'm dead in my track. Lisa yelled out in agony, her screams tearing up everything. It was the scream of a soul dying. Help me! You have to help me! My whole body is drenched in sweat. It's 2 a.m. So, today, I've only got 3 hours of sleep. I walk out of the bedroom and go to the kitchen to have a drink. A glass of cold water will bring my heart rate back to normal. Then, I decide to take a trip down to the basement even though I was there all night. The basement is dim. My eyes catch a weak light shining from the corner of the room. On the old mattress lies the person I love so much. She's sleeping peacefully. Lit. Would be nice if she was always quiet like this. Suddenly her eyes get wide open and she stared dead at me. Ah, honey, do you wake up so early? She doesn't utter a word. Only when I'm about to leave, she grabs my arm and moans, "Please help me." Darling, I'm helping. It's only getting better, I promise. As soon as I finished my sentence, she went crazy like an animal. She was messing around and tearing me apart. I took a step back, and she still stormed forward despite her unhealed wounds. As expected, the chain from her ankle jerked her back, making her fall to her knees. Normally, Lisa is very gentle, girlfriend. But at some times like this, only this chain can hold her back. I gave her an injection to put her back to sleep, then locked the basement and went back to my bedroom. Half a year has passed, but the police and those people still haven't given up on Lisa. If only they knew that she was with the one who loves her the most, accepts her no matter how distorted she becomes. Of course, if you're wondering, the guy that made her come to be like this was taken care of a long time ago. I left everything behind just for Lisa. After she finally asked me for help that night. You don't understand, neither will she. I get it, but I for sure will never give up on her. Ever. Hello, what's your emergency?
The Millers have 2 daughters, Clara and Ellen. Unfortunately, Ellen, the older sister, was born with a birth defect and spent the rest of her life in a wheelchair. It was a snowy day. Clara and Ellen just came home, and immediately her mother complained.
Clara, did you scare your friends with spiders? The teacher called me again.
Clara sighed, so her mother knew it. But because her parents were very indulgent, she would get away with it this time. As she thought, she put on a pitiful expression and said,
No, Mom, she made a fuss about it. It was just a prank.
Because she was protected by Ellen, she got rid of the crime. Then, Clara pushed Ellen's wheelchair up the stairs and went to her room.
Seriously? I only got 20,000 views for this video?
As soon as she opened TikTok, Clara was extremely angry. Actually, what the teacher said is not quite wrong. Not only did Clara bring spiders to scare her friend, but she also forced her to eat them alive. Clara responded with a shrill laugh.
No one dares to save you.
While struggling to find a new way to increase the view, she suddenly heard her mom calling for dinner. Clara just turned around and was startled because Ellen had been waiting for her at the door since. As soon as she saw Clara, Ellen quickly turned away. At that moment, Clara had a crazy idea. Ellen's leg wouldn't feel anything anyway, Clara thought. Then she hurriedly called down.
Mom, we're coming.
While setting the phone to recording mode, Clara slowly pushed down Ellen's wheelchair. She only went half of her way when the chair suddenly shook and Ellen fell down the stairs.
Ellen, no!
Clara screamed, but she couldn't hold her sister in time. As soon as she heard the noise, Mrs. Miller rushed out of the kitchen, and witnessing this scene, she was stunned. Ellen collapsed at the bottom of the stairs, and due to the fall from above, the joint of her leg was broken and twisted backward. Even the wrist was no longer in its original joint shape. Ellen lost consciousness, and Mrs. Miller quickly dialed 911. No one noticed Miller's eerie smile as she pressed the save video button. 2 weeks later, Ellen had to stay at home. Since that video, Clara's TikTok view has significantly increased. Some praised, some criticized, but in the end, they all just considered it an incident. Recently, Clara had run out of ideas. She came back to a lot of things: music, punk rock fashion, and videos forcing her friends to eat worms. But nothing seemed to attract as many views as the scene where Ellen falls down the stairs. So Clara decided to make another video with Ellen, but this time she would be more creative. On a cold February evening, when the Millers were asleep and Ellen climbed onto a bed by herself, the house sank into the stillness of sleep. But there was one person who hadn't slept, and that was Clara. She was in the kitchen and streaming on TikTok.
Okay, guys, this is all we need.
Clara took out a sharp knife from the kitchen. Then she headed straight to the second-floor bedroom where Ellen was sleeping. Clara stroked her sister's serene face, curious about this face in a few more minutes.
Let's do this.
Clara looked into the camera and then slowly raised the sharp knife. With one hand, she pressed the rag to her sister's mouth and held it tight. With the other hand, she stabbed her sister with a strong, decisive blow to her stomach. Ellen woke up in a panic. Before she could understand what was going on, the next slash continued to fall, and then another to another slash. Ellen's pain was in her bones. She tried to struggle, but couldn't get rid of it. All Ellen could do was to let out a hum.
Don't spoil the evening.
As soon as she finished speaking, Clara stabbed the knife straight into Ellen's neck. Blood spurted from it, splashing all over her face and clothes. God, Clara didn't think things would get this messy. She quickly covered the pillow over the face and neck of Ellen, who was now struggling on the bed. However, the layer of blood quickly soaked the pillow. It felt like enough now. Clara ended the stream, then quietly went outside the house and called 911.
Clara Miller, 14, was arrested at the scene. The murder happened while the Millers were sleeping, and no one knew about it. Due to blood loss, the victim did not survive and officially died at 4 a.m. today. A video is becoming viral on TikTok, believed to be the video the murderer shot right after stabbing her sister to...
I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister.
can get tiring to watch him go about his shenanigans in the pursuit of viral fame. Asking me to pick up things for him while he was traveling. To be honest, I was quite relieved since I didn't want to receive any more cheap view pranks from him. One evening I got home to find a big box waiting on his front porch. It was wrapped and glued very well along with the note, "Open the box right after you receive it." Damn it, I'm sure this is some kind of prank set up for me. I decided to drag the box over to my house to store it in the garage. I admit, I had trouble lifting the box on my own. It was really freaking heavy. I hadn't been to the garage for a long time, so I struggled for a while to pull it up. As I was trying my best to lift the box, I tripped over a ledge in the door. I lost my grip on the package and fell to the ground and heard a light crack inside. God, I hope I haven't broken anything important. But that's okay. I can blame the carrier. That's what I thought. I dragged the box the rest of the way, setting it in the corner for days. Until a few days passed, there was a strong stench rose coming from the box from the garage that I couldn't ignore. He ordered raw meat to gradually roast the mukbang or something. I covered my nose as I approached the box with a pair of scissors in my hands. I probably wouldn't even have needed them to open it, as it had become soggy enough at the bottom to poke through with a finger. I also prepared dozens of plastic bags to handle the pile of meat. But in the end, it turned out that I didn't need all of that. There was meat inside, not beef or pork, but human flesh. No, it's worse than that. That's my neighbor lying in there. Then his flesh began to rot and decompose. I rushed out of the garage, unable to hold back the nausea that gushes out of my rectum. My body softened with fear. I still managed to call the police. It was kind of hard not to suspect the man with the corpse in its garage. After all, thankfully they soon realized I wasn't involved. There was one piece of irrefutable evidence in my neighbor's own hands that proved my innocence: a vlogging camera. They showed me the footage only once. Turns out my neighbor took on the challenge to resend himself from the shipping facility to his home. The last video on camera read, "Hey, what's up guys? I think I'm in a truck right now. I can feel it moving." On the last entry, the box toppled over. He broke his neck, and that was it. The camera continued to record until the power went out. There's one thing that I didn't tell the police. Just right before the tumble that leads to his death, I heard the familiar screeching sound. It's the sound of my garage door, slowly being pulled up.
When two guys who own the Luxury Dark channel posted a video about the dark web dating site, my group set up a challenge.
Okay, since we're all single, the challenge will be to find a girlfriend on the dark web.
Then, challenge accepted messages pop up. As someone who is used to the dark web, I certainly can't lose this challenge. That night, after I accessed the dating site on the dark web, I clicked to see a list of girls who are available. If you've watched the video of Luxury Dark, you can probably guess what kind of weirdos they are. Some people have severely burned bodies, some have wrinkled skin, weirdly messy hair, or even distorted parts. Among them, the blinking black-haired girl named Mia. She has a hobby of collecting dead insects, just like me. After a few days of texting back and forth, Mia asked for my home address, and I gave it to her. That very night, she came to my house. Mia wore a white ankle-length dress. She looked exactly like her avatar, with pitch black hair. What's strange was that she didn't wear anything on her feet.
Did you walk barefoot here?
Well, I took an Uber.
Mia replied nonchalantly, and just like that, I let her get in the house. That challenge I officially won. But there is one thing my friends didn't know. I fell in love with Mia. It didn't take long for Mia and I to officially live together. Living in the same house with Mia is wonderful. Everything was great in the beginning. We get along really well, and we've never had more than a brief argument. But then she started humming. It's so dumb, I know, but she's always whistling this weird song, like the kind of tune you'd hear in a horror movie. At first, I would just hear her humming it when she was showering. Even though I tried to ignore it, I couldn't. It got stuck in my head and it drove me a little crazy, just like the time when Adele's Easy on Me first came out. You know the type. After a week or so, I asked her what the song was, and she just laughed. I'm wondering if maybe she came up with it on her own, especially when she started doing it more. One night while I was sleeping, I was woken up by that humming sound like a loudspeaker pounding right next to my ear. I thought I was dreaming, but no, I was wrong. I opened my eyes to see she was lying on her side, staring at me and humming that terrifying, scary song again.
Jesus Christ, you scared me to death.
In response, Mia remained silent, and suddenly she smiled. God, that smile didn't just stop at that grin, but it stretched and stretched until her lips reached her ears.
What the hell?
I shivered but couldn't move. Just like that, Mia, with her bloody mouth, bared her sharp teeth and came close to me. Just when I thought she was about to chew my head off, Mia stopped, returned to her senses, and went back to sleep like nothing happened. That night, I lay motionless in that position until morning, unable to close my eyes, and just kept my eyes on the ceiling. The next day, I came home late from work exhausted, partly because I couldn't sleep the night before. Mia was in the kitchen preparing food, and she just kept humming.
Crazy bitch!
I felt like I was blowing things out of proportion, but honestly, how hard is it to just not humming all the time? I told her to stop, but she just huffed and kept cooking.
What do you mean?
She said. It seemed that she wanted to start the fight. I lost my mind. I slapped Mia hard. Just then, she got freaked out. She told me she wasn't doing it and didn't know what my problem was. She called me crazy just because I was getting a little upset, and somehow that was all I could take. I grabbed one of the cast iron pans from the stove and swung it at her head as hard as I could. Mia fell over and smashed her head on the counter, falling to the ground. I think I hit her maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't remember, but I feel horrible. I couldn't believe I'd lost my temper like that, and I have no idea how I can fix this, regardless of how much she might have been provoking me. So if you ask me, never find the lovers on the dark web. But you know what the weird thing is? She's still freaking humming. 2 days have passed. Mia was still lying on the kitchen floor. The blood had dried. Her eyes were rolling back and her jaw was shattered into 100 pieces. But she didn't stop. I just need her to shut up. Just shut up. Shut up.
It's a dreary winter day. I stand in front of my treasure, the Harry Potter collection, while sipping a cup of coffee. This familiar scene reminds me of what happened 10 years ago, when I was just a 10-year-old kid, being a boy who loved to explore things. My best friend at the time was Ronan. Being a die-hard Harry Potter fan, I just called him Ron. And since we're so close, I considered myself Harry as well. Interesting, right? Ron and I loved going to the train station after school. Back then, I always believed that the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 holds the secret entrance to the magical platform 9 3/4, which of course could lead us to Hogwarts. There was a man who often sat at the corner of the railway platform, wearing a cape, like a witch's costume. One afternoon, I noticed a young boy approach the old man with a wand in his hand.
Hey, Ron.
Do you think he's an employee of Platform 9 3/4? No idea.
Ron's dusty answer disappointed me. I stopped talking to him, turned to see the empty corner. The old man and the boy with the wand were no longer there.
Oh no! I lost track of them.
I came to the railway platform, but still, I found nothing.
It's dinner time. We need to go home.
After that day, Ron and I were stuck in the house for a whole week due to the heavy snowfall. As soon as the weather improved, I picked up the phone and called his house.
Hey, come over. We're gonna go to the station. Don't forget your wand.
By the time we got there, it was already dark. Only a few people were passing by. We stood in a familiar place, tried to find the employee of Platform 9 3/4, but that day, he didn't sit in his familiar corner. Ron stared at me in the confusion, so I had to reassure him.
If you want to be a witch, you have to trust me. The other day, I saw that man took a boy to Hogwarts. That boy has a wand, just like us.
Then, Ron and I approached the place where the man usually sat, but it just made us more disappointed. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew up from nowhere. It brought goosebumps to the back of my neck.
Bruh, is that Azkaban Dementor or something? I don't know, but let's go home. It's getting dark.
I ignored Ron's words and tried to linger. A few minutes passed. From the darkness suddenly appeared a shadow, a thin and tall body. Oh my god, it's definitely Azkaban Dementor. In the distance, he was dark and threatening. A few seconds later, the shadow approached us and began to show its face. Underneath the cape, I saw ragged clothes. His face was terrifying and gave me nightmares for years. And in his hand was not a magic wand, a bloody knife. He smiled sinisterly, revealing jagged yellow teeth.
Run!
Ron yelled.
No! I spent my whole life preparing for this.
And then loudly chant the incantation.
Expecto Patronum.
Yet nothing happened. The man almost caught me. While my legs were wobbly with fear, Ron grabbed my hand and we ran as fast as we could.
Idiot. You want to die? Run!
Just then, I tripped and got my feet stuck in the railway tracks. The madman was still standing over there and laughing. Oh my god, that's it. Am I going to die like this? My fear spiked. I frantically waved my wand to hope for a miracle. The train was already very close that could hit me in any seconds. When I'm about to pass down, Ron ran down and managed to free my leg. He made it out before the train cut through and left the madman, who was still laughing, wildly behind. That night, when Ron took me home, my dad got really mad. He thought I sneaked to the train station without asking his permission. Turns out his concerns are well grounded. During that week, the news had spread about the disappearance of boys my age. In the most recent case, the boy's mother said that after she lost her son while refueling at a gas station near the railway, and the common thing between the boy and the other victims is that they are all Harry Potter fans.
While I was at the Disneyland entrance waiting for my shift, I saw Bruno, the coworker who just left from the previous shift. He showed me a trending video of Mickey Mouse. "It is said anyone who sees this video will be cursed," Bruno said. Why did people want to self-harm after watching it? I was pretty sure it was just a made-up story from Creepypasta. It was the message from the manager. He assigned me to clean up at Toontown, specifically Mickey's basement. I said goodbye to Bruno and headed straight to Mickey's house. My job was cleaning all of Mickey's basement, including 2 men's and women's restrooms, a small gym and break room. Since there was no one here, the place became creepier than usual. I started my night shift by cleaning the men's bathroom floor. Jesus, these footprints won't go away. I pushed it harder and harder. After a while, those footprints finally faded. It's strange, what were the children playing with to be so dirty? But when I looked closer, they appeared to be too large to be a child's footprint. I continued my shift and headed to the women's restroom. To make the work less boring, I was cleaning the house while humming a melody. A few minutes passed and suddenly I heard a strange noise. Looked like it came from the men's restroom. I stopped and listened carefully, but it fell silent again. Jesus, I must have gotten paranoid from watching that Mickey video. After that, I quickly moved my stuff to the gym to clean up, and I heard that strange sound, but this time it came from the women's restroom. So I called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" Strangely enough, the sound didn't stop, but became louder and louder. My heart beat faster with each step. As soon as I felt that person was about to burst into the room, the footsteps became quieter. What caught my eye was the toolbox in the middle of the floor. Oh, was the box here just now? While thinking, I pulled the crate towards the corner of the room. As I was at the door to take a look around, I suddenly felt a chill on my back. I turned, and immediately my whole body froze. Someone just passed me. From this angle, I could only see the back, but this person seemed to be wearing a Mickey mascot. Is it staff? I called out, Hey, who's that?" But that person still staggered forward. Could it be the front shift worker? I asked again, "Bruno, is that you?" This time I got a response. "Yeah, I forgot something," he said, as Mickey's shadow disappeared at the end of the corridor. About half an hour later, I finished cleaning the restroom and was ready to leave. When passing the men's restroom, I suddenly saw that the toolbox dragged to the middle of the room again. How strange. Bruno? You still here?" But no one answered. I looked at the time. It was 3 a.m., 2 more hours until the shift's end. I didn't want to be caught by camera, so I went to a room in the restroom to sleep a bit. Time passed by. As I was leaning on the toilet and dozing off to sleep, I suddenly heard a soft sound. The noise came from the next room. Jesus, I forgot to check the other rooms, I thought as I slowly bent to peer into the next room. Oh my god, there were feet. They're crazily big in size. While I was standing still, those feet slowly turned towards me. Something wet fell on my head. I looked up and froze. That was the head of Mickey's mascot. His eyes stared right straight at me. Gosh, you scared me to death. You still forget something? As soon as I stopped, the Mickey mascot made a high-pitched laugh.
I forgot this thing!
He said, and slowly raised a sharp knife, tinged with a bright red, like the color of blood. Suddenly, Mickey's head dropped. I rushed out of the bathroom and rushed to the door. God, the door was locked. I twisted like crazy, but couldn't open the door. With no other choice, I returned to the crate in the corner of the room. At this moment, suddenly the door from the next room opened, and a man in the Mickey suit stepped out, knife in his hand, walking slowly towards me. I have to hurry, I mumbled as I kept looking for something to open the door. Mickey was still laughing like crazy and rushed to me like lightning. Behind me was the wall, so I had nowhere else to hide. He slowly raised his knife and prepared to swing it down. Fortunately, if it weren't for the toolbox, I would probably have died at his hands. As soon as I saw the axe, I quickly grabbed it and rushed to the door. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, the door opened. I closed it just as the madman got out. I quickly blocked the door with the axe and left that goddamn Mickey basement behind to run to the police station. When the police arrived, the room was all empty. No trace of the Mickey mascot was found at the scene, and strangely enough, they couldn't get in touch with Bruno or even the manager who assigned me to clean in this shift.
Subway food store for more than 15 minutes. Gosh, this store had never been this crowded. It had been like that ever since those two new girls came. Whatever. I just wanted to order my favorite bread. But they worked so slow that the waiting line got very long. One of the girls saw me and sighed and looked away. I remembered her. Her name was Ashley. A few days ago, I came to Subway to buy food, and even though I had told her exactly 15 times that I didn't want ketchup, she didn't listen to me at all. I lost my temper and then had a quarrel with Ashley. Finally, the manager came to apologize to me, while Ashley got a day's salary deducted. But what still annoyed me was her attitude. What an obnoxious hussy. She muttered something to the employee next to her. They definitely were talking about me.
Hey, what took so long?
Ashley stopped whispering. She sneered and then got back to her work, and she threw a glance at me. Finally, it was my turn to order. Ashley went inside right when I came to her.
What would you like to order, sir?
The other girl, named Julia, looked a bit shy.
1 chicken and bacon ketchup melt, no ketchup, please. Bear in mind, no ketchup. No ketchup. Got it?
I repeated many times just to make sure. I decided to follow Julia without her noticing when she brought my order in there.
Hey, no ketchup,
Julia said to Ashley.
He'll never know.
Ashley sneered while pouring ketchup over my bread. I told her not to. Damn it. As if that wasn't enough, she spat a puddle of saliva onto the bread.
He deserves it. And don't you tell the manager.
Ashley threatened Julia. At that moment, I just wanted to rush over and rip that Ashley to pieces. Then the two girls walked out.
Please, come and take your meals.
I'm not taking this.
Sir, I didn't put the sauce in, as you asked.
Really? I saw her spit on my food.
I pointed out to Ashley. Her eyes kept rolling because of that.
Sir, what are you talking about? We never did.
I saw you do it with my own eyes. You did it.
Ashley asked me to show evidence, but who needed proof? I had seen it with my naked eyes.
You were there. Tell everyone.
I pointed at Julia, but she was so scared that she stammered and ended up defending her colleague.
No, we never did.
Fine. Then what is this? I said no ketchup dressing!
There was no way that witch could get out of this. So she kept quiet, and Julia apologized and offered to make another bread. Meanwhile, the culprit Ashley immediately stormed inside.
Remember, no ketchup!
I was good with Julia. She was a better waitress. However, she immediately proved the opposite because she put ketchup onto my bread again. Ever since I stepped into this goddamned place, these two dumbasses had been making fun of me. I couldn't stand them anymore.
I told you no ketchup!
Sir, I'm sorry. Please calm down. This is a mistake.
Mistake my ass!
I stormed in and grabbed the fork in the jar and rushed to her. Julia covered her face, screaming in pain.
Damn it! Damn it! I frantically stabbed her even though she was crying in deadly pain. Right. I had to kill her. I had to kill her. She must die. Go to hell!
Julia!
That witch. It was all her fault. That devil Ashley finally came out. I furiously rushed to her with my fork. Time to die! Time to die! I didn't remember how many times I stabbed her, but when I stopped, she was lying there in a pool of blood. And then a group of people quickly rushed over to suppress me. Ashley was dead right after that. Julia went to the hospital and I was brought here. It was all Ashley's fault. It was because of her that no one believed me, and I was brought here. I told her not to put the ketchup in, but she didn't listen at all.
No ketchup! No ketchup! No ketchup! No ketchup!
I'm done. Sorry for being late. Before I finished speaking, I suddenly saw a familiar and strange figure. My God, it's Mike. How did he wake up without me knowing? Mike, the guy in a wheelchair, fidgets with the ball and is about to perform a three-pointer shot from the middle of the field. With that posture, I doubted him, but still didn't want to distract Mike, so I gently sat down to watch. Mike gently raised his hand and made a powerful throw. That's a great throw. Just by then, the ball went straight into the basket like everything was programmed. It fell to the ground, but the resounding sound was a bit off, strange, and creepy. I don't know why, but the ball doesn't bounce like a regular basketball anymore. Now that I noticed it, it was a human head. A bald head. God, that's the coach's head. I can't believe what's happening in front of my eyes. Mike, my best friend, murdered the coach? Terror stabbed my heart. I couldn't move even a single finger. Mike seemed to sense my presence ever since because I heard him saying, "Kyle, what about you? Why are you hiding the fact that you're the coach's son?" Can't. It can't be. Why does he know that secret? We never said a word about it. How could he know, he said. My naive Kyle. I was not in a coma the whole time. You didn't know that, did you? Just then, I remember sitting next to Mike's bed, talking on the phone with my dad, who's also my coach. Yeah, it worked. He hasn't woken up yet. But, Dad, I didn't know you wanted to take his legs just for this.
Day of my life.
What an exhausting day.
There was a groan from somewhere outside the store. Lucy cautiously peeked out to see. It was a ragged homeless man. He was staring at the frozen meat counter. His mouth was drooling. His bloodshot eyes were wide open. His hand slid across the glass, which made a creaking sound. Lucy timidly asked,
Sir, how can I help you?
But he didn't say a word, just let out annoying, heavy breathing. Looking at the thin man, Lucy sighed softly.
He must have been starving for a long time.
There was brief news on TV about some apartment break-ins in the area, but Lucy didn't care much because the apartment complex she lived in had the best security. Suddenly, Lucy received a text from her roommate saying that she wouldn't be home and telling Lucy to lock the door carefully.
Never mind. Enjoy the night.
Lucy put the phone down on the table and looked up at the clock on the wall. The shift was finally over. She locked the door to check the goods before the next shift coworker arrived. Holding up a cold piece of meat, Lucy was startled by a strange noise. She turned around to find that the homeless man was still there. He licked his lips and smiled at Lucy, and he kept banging his head on the front door like crazy. She staggered backward and slumped under the counter, while the bangs grew louder, until she heard the sound of a key being put into the lock and the door slightly opened. Lucy quickly grabbed a pen from the counter and stood up. The person who just walked in was David, the co-worker on the next shift. "What's wrong?" David saw her panic and felt a little confused.
Didn't you see anyone at the door?
No. Anyway, what the heck is this? Ew, that's disgusting. David looked at the glass, frowning slightly. Lucy shivered when she saw the stain, but it seemed like he had already left. The clock struck 12 o'clock, so Lucy hurriedly let David take over and quickly went out the door. She comforted herself with the thought that maybe it was just a weird customer at night. Just then on the street, there was almost no one passing by. She walked along the pavement under the yellow, dim lights. Lucy heard the annoying rustle of slippers. She turned her head to squint at every corner of the empty street, but no one was there. So she continued to walk, but after a few steps, she stopped, still hearing footsteps whispering in her ears. She looked back. It was just herself on the road. She walked faster. The rustling appeared again, seemingly speeding up like her. This time it came along with a whistling sound. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, and sweat soaked her uniform. She kept walking without daring to look back.
It's almost home. I will be fine.
Lucy reassured herself, but couldn't stop her body from shaking uncontrollably. The sound of footsteps running after Lucy became louder and more urgent. She ran up the stairs, but she was so panicked that she tripped. She suppressed the pain, picked up her things, and ran as fast as possible. Finally, Lucy frantically put the key in the lock.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
The man was so close. Footsteps and rattling of the stairs drew nearer. The whistle echoed throughout the dark corridor.
Please, please.
She finally got the key in the lock. She turned the key, rushed into the house, and slammed the door. The man also rushed over at this time, only a split second before he was able to catch Lucy. She closed the door and locked it, then gasped for air, slid to the floor, and began to cry. "Open the door, you little rat! Open it!" The man banged on the door and shouted, his hand constantly tugging at the doorknob. Lucy was panic-stricken and stepped back. Suddenly, everything fell silent. Lucy raised her head, trying to crawl up to the peephole to look outside. Suddenly, he jumped out of nowhere to meet Lucy's eyes. Knowing he couldn't do anything here, the man licked the peephole on the door and left. When there was no sound anymore, Lucy shakingly cracked open her door and stared out. "Hey!" The pervert pressed his face to the cracked door, so close that his drool splashed on her face. Lucy was frightened and stepped back. The crazy man turned the doorknob like crazy. "Open the door!" he shouted as he banged on the door. Lucy was shaking as she dialed the phone.
It's 911. What's your emergency?
Please help. Someone is trying to break into my house.
Hold on. We're on the way.
The man heard what Lucy was saying. He stopped pounding the door and left. Lucy leaned on the door, sobbing, her whole body trembling with such. In this story was put in the same situation, and even though she's a grown-up now, she still remembers what happened that day.
14 years ago, on a sunny Sunday afternoon, Sophia and her mother went to Walmart for some groceries. Since Sophia had done a good job helping her mom with housework, as a reward, Mom would buy her a Barbie school bag. Sophia was so excited that she kept singing until they'd arrived at the parking lot. She was happy every time going to the supermarket. It was time to run and juggle along hundreds of parallel aisles.
Sweetie, you shouldn't be running around like that.
Zoe reminded her daughter before giving her the bag she always wanted.
Thank you, Mommy.
The little girl hugged her mother.
Darling, now go to the play area and stay there while I go buy some fruit, all right?
Zoe led Sophia to the play area.
Remember, just stay here. I'll be right back, all right?
And so there was only happy Sophia left among hundreds of toys of all kinds. While Sophia was looking around, a stranger quietly approached her.
Hello, little friend.
Hi.
Sophia was startled, but still replied in a friendly manner.
Where's your mommy?
Sophia didn't answer, but pointed towards the fruit counter.
So, you're here alone?
This man's voice and appearance started to make her stomach turn. Mom always said to never talk to strangers, so she wouldn't say any other words.
Aw, I'm so sad because I don't have any friends.
Sophia suddenly felt pity for him.
Don't cry. I get it.
Sophia gave the man a candy to comfort him.
Ah, thank you, little friend.
Sophia!
Zoe called out her daughter's name.
I'm here, Mommy!
Seeing that the kid was all right, Zoe turned away, continuing to talk on the phone with customers. When Sophia turned back, the man had already disappeared. The man wasn't really leaving, he was observing. Now he was quite sure that the mother wouldn't be back right away. So he returned to Sophia.
Hey, little friend.
Oh, hi!
Thanks for the candy.
You're welcome.
Hey, little friend, I have something for you. This is a thank you gift.
Sophia looked at the beautiful doll with amusement.
So pretty.
She marveled while stroking the doll. Suddenly, she was grabbed.
Sophia?
Zoe returned and her daughter had already disappeared.
Sophia!
There was no answer. Feeling that something bad might have happened, she panicked and ran out to find her child.
Sophia!
It were as though she vanished.
Oh my God! Sophia! Where are you?
Zoe went from one toy aisle to another, but couldn't see any kids that looked like hers. She started to regret leaving her daughter alone. As soon as she reached the doll stall, Zoe paused. Wasn't that the backpack that Sophia was wearing before? She ran around to ask for help.
Please help me. My daughter is missing.
Most people just ignored her because they didn't know what was going on. Finally, there was a Walmart security guard standing nearby.
Excuse me. My daughter is lost. Please help me.
She cried.
Please, calm down. I will immediately call the security center to find her,
the guard said.
Sophia!
Zoe immediately ran like crazy to where she heard her daughter. It seemed that Zoe's cries and Sophia's struggle worked. The man dropped the girl and ran away. Sophia ran towards her mother. Zoe immediately hugged her daughter and couldn't help crying.
I'm scared.
As soon as she met her mother, Sophia quickly hugged her neck.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, honey.
The man was quickly arrested. The incident stirred the media for a while. and became a warning for mothers not to let their children play in supermarkets or shopping centers by themselves.
Sweetie, I'm sorry. From now on, I will never, ever let you out of my sight.
Not a good person.
Nick knows we can't trust people, but this time, he insists.
So what? At least you and I don't have to eat the trash.
Then, he walked away with a man named Alex. If only Nick could see the monstrous smile on that man's face before he left. Mr. Alex has brought me money like he promised. I don't know how much money Nick made, but a month later, I had an apartment to stay in. I even had enough money to buy a laptop and an old phone. At first, Nick and I couldn't meet in person, but we still talked on the phone.
You know what? I've never eaten that much food in my life. I'll send you the link to watch me on YouTube.
I clicked on the link. Then, on the screen appeared about a dozen videos of Nick sitting in front of a mountain of food. All are fast food, spicy noodles, and sweets.
I thought you only ate things like vegetables and fruits.
In response, Nick said,
Yeah, but audiences don't want to see boring stuff like that. Besides, fast food is delicious as well.
After a few months, Nick appeared more regularly on YouTube with the new title,
The New King of Mukbang!
Gradually, he changed so drastically that I no longer recognized him. My old Nick was calm and gentle, but this one is so rude, not mentioning he gained tons of weight.
Oh my god, how come Nick turns into this person? What happened to him?
As more and more videos are uploaded, less phone calls are made. Until one day, it's impossible for me to reach him. It's been a week since the last time we talked, so I am extremely worried. Since Alex refused to say a word, I decided to follow him. The plan worked. I was led to a large warehouse. I came in to see many small rooms, all of which are dark. However, there was still one room that had the light on. It was the same room Alex had just entered. I moved as quietly as possible and sneaked a peek inside. The things I saw in that room make me shiver every time I think about it. There was a man wearing a red shirt that I didn't even recognize. That man was so overweight that I can't imagine how he could walk. He was tied to a large iron rod. Blood and brown liquid was all over his body.
Let me go! Let me go! You cannot do this to people!
Just then, Alex appeared. In his hand were a lot of pills. He put the whole bunch in that man's mouth and forced him to swallow them all. Only then, when I could look closely at the details of the face, I realized it was Nick. Although his face was much different from before, those eyes, lips were unmistakable. For God's sake, take these pills! You have another video to shoot in 2 hours. Nick threw up both in the mouth and in his bottom. He struggled, howling in the slime and smelling terrible. I was trembling inside. My hand shook so hard that I could barely hold the phone. But still, I tried to record the scene because I know no one would believe me without the proof. Just then, Alex spotted my presence.
I don't clearly remember what happened after that. I ran like crazy and somehow I magically escaped from that warehouse. Of course, I reported it to the police. But even with the evidence I had, they still wouldn't believe me because I was just homeless after all. but you guys can. I believe that. And here is the video I took that day. Please bring justice back to Nick. Please, let me go.
If you don't shoot that video, you and that girl will be back to your garbage.
It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let you make that stupid video. Ryan, please forgive me. No, are you crazy?
Maddie knew Ryan always came up with bizarre ideas, but she never thought it would go this far.
Come on, Maddie. Let's make that video together. Mr. Beast did it too, and look how many views he got. 150 million!
While saying that, Ryan pointed at the screen. Maddie didn't know what to say because she was pretty convinced. Ryan and Maddie are best friends. After finishing high school, they dropped out of college to do YouTube together. Ryan, who has a good look, is the one who would love to be on the screen. However, Maddie is the content creator and also his manager. Maddie sighed, feeling she was about to lose this argument.
Suppose I say yes. Then where do we shoot?
Ryan got so happy hearing that.
I know the place. My buddy, please say yes.
And his look made her fall completely.
Okay, then let's make a plan.
Ryan was overjoyed. He said cheerfully,
As long as there are no spiders, I'll be fine.
Then, Ryan left, leaving Maddie with a bunch of paperworks. Looks like Ryan is going out on a date with a girl he just met on Tinder a few weeks ago, Maddie thought. And finally, that day has come. Ryan is the boldest man, Maddie has to admit. Since Ryan wanted to make it as creepy as possible, he decided to take on the challenge at an abandoned cemetery. Although Maddie doesn't believe in ghosts and spirits, this place really gives her shivers. Just like what Mr. Beast did, Maddie and Ryan rented a large glass coffin. Then they hired a crane driver to slowly place it underground. The AC connected directly to the coffin will help Ryan breathe.
Okay, get in.
Maddie told Ryan while having a quick look around to make sure he has enough snacks, water, and bottles to clean. Ryan ducked inside. God, only he has the guts to do this. If it was Maddie, just being in such a narrow space would literally drive her crazy.
Hello guys, 24-hour buried alive challenge. Start!
Then, Ryan excitedly said to Maddie, who was standing dumbfounded at the top,
Buried me alive, Maddie!
Then Maddie started turning on the camera. The thick layer of soil was slowly brought down, soon covering the surface of the coffin. When everything was done, it was already dark.
Can you hear me, Ryan?
Maddie spoke into the radio, checking the signal underground. But Maddie didn't hear anything from Ryan. Then she began to worry.
Ryan, answer me!
Just then, he hastily replied,
Here, I've just peed a bit. What a mess down here.
Maddie told him to keep an eye on the camera.
Don't worry. See you soon.
As it started to rain, Maddie got into the car and lay down to rest. Fatigue quickly hit her, and she slowly fell asleep.
Hello guys, it's been 2 hours and I want to show you this. Can you see that? God, there's so many disturbing animals down here. Since I saw it, you guys will have to see it too. Listen, I just saw something.
When Maddie woke up, it was already dawn. She turned on the walkie-talkie to talk to Ryan so he wouldn't be sad.
Ryan, in case you didn't know, it's already morning.
Maybe he's still sleeping, she thought.
Jesus, you take the challenge to sleep all the time?
Then, Maddie threw the radio away and started her morning. About an hour later, Maddie finished eating an apple and a few sandwiches. At this time, the sun was also shining overhead.
Maybe Ryan's awake by now.
She checked Ryan through the radio again.
Ryan, shouldn't you wake up now?
No one answered.
Ryan, stop your stupid prank.
Still no response. God, could it be? Maddie rushed to the AC area where Ryan's oxygen was provided. The machine is still operating normally. She was relieved, but still worried.
Ryan, if you don't answer, I will dig you up immediately and the challenge will end.
1 minute. 2 minutes passed. Still nothing happened. It's like Maddie's sitting on fire, and she called the crane and asked to dig the coffin up. It had been raining, so plowing the ground was much more difficult. It took half an hour for the lid of the coffin to gradually reveal itself. God, Ryan was curled up in a coffin. His whole body stiffened. His eyes rolled back and his mouth twitched. Ryan is in a state of extreme fear, and if Maddie's not mistaken, he may not be alive anymore.
Ryan! No!
After that, Maddie fainted and didn't know what else to do. According to what she heard, the crane man called the police. According to the investigation, maybe in the middle of the night, Ryan had a panic attack, combined with the narrow space which led to this tragic death. Before panicking, police found another video. For you. You're so sorry for your sufferings. In the video is Ryan with an eager look on his face saying, Maddie, because I don't have the courage to speak to you directly, I will say it now. Now you see it, you must be editing videos. Maddie, I love you. I know I keep you busy by disappearing a lot these days. But actually I prepared a vacation for you and me. If you don't mind, please be my girlfriend. So? Maddie's heart clenched. If only she knew Ryan's feelings in advance. If only he had told her frankly before taking on this stupid challenge. If only she hadn't let the spider in because she was so frustrated. Things would have been different.
Huh?
My best friend Lisa was a wonderful person. This horror story I'm gonna tell you didn't happen to me. It happened to her. Unlike me and our friends back then, Lisa had no financial support, so she had to help herself. She had to do all sorts of part-time jobs to pay the bills. This was starting to interfere with her education and her social life as well. This really wasn't working out for her, so she started looking for smaller sort of side hustles online. I didn't know much about the website aside from the fact that it was known for adult content and pretty much every Instagram girl had one in their bio. Lisa bragged to me that she could make hundreds of dollars just by taking pictures. Men were thirsty enough to just drop money on a picture of her feet or a picture of her crying. Of course, from time to time, she also gets some weird requests from customers, some asking her to hold a hair clipper or demanding her to cry while tearing her fishnet tights. Out of curiosity, I registered an account, recharged to follow Lisa's account. I was really shocked. I warned her that it was a bad idea. Lisa was blown away by the easy money that my words no longer mattered. Some weeks later, I noticed something was off. Lisa was absent from her class, more frequently than ever. More strangely, Monday was always a fixed date for us to meet for lunch at the school canteen, but Lisa didn't even show up. I called her a few times, but got no response. At the end of the day, I decided to contact her parents' house, but they said they couldn't reach her either. When I checked my phone, I found out that she hadn't even been online since 2 days ago. Having a bad feeling, I called the police and reported Lisa as a missing person. The police finally got a warrant to search through her apartment, but when they looked through there, they saw no traces of any violence or that anything could have happened. A week, a month, and a half a year have passed. The police still have no clue. No one knows whether Lisa was alive or dead. Her parents are devastated, so am I. But I still pray for Lisa every day. And I believe she is in a much better place in the real world. A year has passed. It's not until now that I can finally let out a sigh of relief. It was a genius plan. I left her body in the basement of an abandoned farmhouse about 100 miles from the city. It's her fault. I couldn't bear the thought of her exposing her flesh and skin to such strangers. Not me. If Lisa hadn't been so stubborn, if she just deleted the damn account, things might have been different. I lived in a dormitory. My roommate was Adam. He is the same age as me, but a head taller than me. I'm a skinny, nerdy college student who likes to spend time online and playing games alone. As for Adam, although he always wore a hoodie, I know for sure behind that shirt was a tall, muscular body. He must have been the desire of many girlfriends. Despite his appearance, Adam is quite taciturn and quiet. We don't talk to each other much. I also respect his privacy, so I don't often ask questions. Like me, Adam usually stays in his room all weekend. He will be out of the house only on Friday night between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. So, it was a Friday night. As usual, when Adam went out, I opened Omegle to meet and talk to strangers. You know, guys like me don't usually get the chance to make friends in real life. After skipping through a few boring chat frames, I stopped. I came across a familiar scene. The structure, painted walls, are exactly the same as the dorm room I was in. However, strangely, in the middle of that room was a table and a chair. He didn't say no, quietly eating the bowl of soup in front of him. Hello, late dinner, huh? No one replied. It was only then that I noticed his odd appearance. Why on earth did he have to eat haggardly like that? He seems to be very hungry, but at the same time, so reluctantly. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw his tears rolling down his cheeks. Weird, I thought. At that moment, another figure appeared. In that dark space, I could only see the person's arm outstretched. He has an axe tattooed above his wrist. The arm kept stroking the boy, but this only made him shiver even more. This must be a joke. I left a message. Freaks, you guys are boring, and left the chat room. The phone fell to the ground, startling me. Looking up at the clock, it was already 2 a.m. I've been asleep since when, I don't even know. Adam was back. Suddenly I thought of the guy eating the soup. Curiosity aroused. I rummaged up and opened my computer to see if the show had ended. Jesus, what happened? On the other side of the screen was a horrifying scene. The boy just now had his face down on the table. The bowl of soup spilled out. A slimy liquid spilled all over the table. What? I glued my eyes on the screen. It's the weirdest soup I've ever seen. On the table was a red mixture. Crammed in the middle was what looked like minced meat. My body shook with fear. I panicked. My whole body, including the chair, fell backwards. It's disgusting. What the hell? Hearing the loud noise, Adam seemed to have woken up and ran to me to ask. I was still breathing heavily, unable to speak, only trembling to point at the screen. That guy, he seems dead. Adam helped me sit back on the bed. Okay, calm down. Tell me everything you know. Wait. This is the first time I've seen Adam not wearing a hoodie. And on top of his wrist is the tattoo of an axe.
Chat with strangers. With just one click, you can meet anyone from anywhere, no matter who they are. But eventually, those ordinary video calls lost their charm. So I made a new prank. Voila! I put the makeup on with a little blood, some bruises, and weird costumes, then sat in front of the laptop and waited. When they got connected, on the screen would appear a girl in a white dress. The light would flash for a while and then turn off. After a few seconds, when the light suddenly was back on, a bloody face would jump in, which definitely would scare the piss out of them. I burst out laughing when my prank made a guy jump out of his skin.
Seriously, dude, this prank is on point,
he said. Their reactions weren't too bad, so I thought I was good at my role, so I gave it a few updates. This time when I opened the video chat frame, there was a guy who was dressed as Pennywise the Clown. As normal, the screen suddenly went black. A scream of terror resounded through the air. A white face covered in blood appeared on the screen, startling the masked man.
Hey, you think this is funny?
The strange man pointed to the screen and said in a deep voice, "It's a prank, take it easy, bro." I frowned slightly.
A prank? Are you an airhead? Do you want to die or something?
He said and jumped toward the screen, and I swear at that moment, he scared the hell out of me. He gave me a snigger and then ended the call.
Up yours,
I murmured. After the first failure, I didn't call it a day, so I kept clicking the new chat box. However, the screen showed that man again. What the hell? I told myself.
You again.
His rough voice came out. He was holding a cleaver in his hand. Something didn't feel right to me, so I clicked the new chat box without saying another word. This time was still that freaky man. "You think you can get away from me?" That voice again froze me in 1 second. "Wrong. I know who you are and where you live." That man was insane. His white eyes opened violently like a dead fish toward the camera. "I will find you and peel your skin and suck your blood and make your hair a wig. I will make you pay for your goddamn prank." While speaking, he pressed his face closer and closer to the screen. He laughed like crazy, which made me petrified. Needless to say, I immediately turned off Omegle and the laptop. The next day, I went to a Target shop for some groceries. On the way back, I had a feeling like someone was following me. But when I turned around, no one was there. "Weird," I mumbled. All I could hear were the footsteps of myself and someone behind me. When I stopped, he stopped. When I went, he followed. Someone was following me. So I suddenly turned my head, but no one to be seen. It's just me and the long, empty road. The next day, I went out for groceries again. "Found you!" A familiar voice startled me. I turned around, and right behind was that man, the crazy guy with the Pennywise costume. No time to think. I immediately ran away, but he quickly caught up. I ran through the alleys, panicking when I heard those footsteps behind me. I hid behind the wall, trying to hold my heavy breath. Felt like my heart was about to explode out of my chest. Boom! That man suddenly, from nowhere, jumped in front of me. The eyes of his white face widened. His mouth opened with a stench and sharp teeth, as if he wanted to eat me alive. "It's time to pay for the prank!" He screamed while chasing after me. I couldn't die this way. I had to run for my life. My house was only a few steps away, and finally, I rushed into my house. Nearly exhausted, I used the last of my power to latch the lock inside. I ran up into my room, jumped into bed, and covered myself with a blanket. I never thought this would happen to me. My friend asked me why I was offline and if I still did my prank. I couldn't tell him how I was put in danger with my silly prank. Now that I was safe, I lay there and fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already dark. I crept out of bed, moved toward the window, and opened it. The man wasn't there. I guess he had finished his joke and given me up. So I opened Omegle again, and felt so relieved there was no sign of Pennywise the clown. Feeling hungry, I decided to go downstairs and find something to eat. Just then, I saw my sister opening the door to let someone in.
"Robbie, say hi to our new neighbor. He's just moved in,"
she said, and went to the kitchen to take a drink. The guest smiled at me and gave me a gift box. "For you." He was so kind. I said thanks as I received his gift box and unboxed it. But as soon as I did, my face turned pale and I dropped it on the floor. At that moment, I heard the door lock. Inside the box was a Pennywise mask. The friendly neighbor turned out to be the one I always dreaded. He wasn't friendly anymore. Instead, he grinned and said, "Gotcha!"
When I was 10, I had a group of close friends. Besides me, there were 3 other kids named Flix, Jack, and Adrian. Remind you, I was a hyperactive child and often played tricks. I remember everything like it was yesterday. On the radio, a mentally ill patient was reported to be hiding in my area, and my parents didn't allow me to play outside. Yet, I was too excited for the upcoming exploration with my friends, so I didn't care. It was a large old house that had been abandoned for a long time. It was fenced with barbed wire, and the large gate was locked. However, there was a small hole in the back wall that was close to the grass, so kids like us could get through. When the group gathered at the place, we crept into the house and started our favorite game, hide and seek. This house is a perfect place to play this game because it's large and has many different rooms. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. I was the seeker. I blindfolded and counted while my friends ran away. 98, 99, 100. It didn't take me long to get Felix and Adrian, but it's not the same when it comes to Jack. You're hiding so well today, ain't you? As my patience was running out, I suddenly saw someone's shadow run past. It must be Jack. He knew I was coming, so he ran away to find another place to hide. I quickly followed him. It's so weird, because as soon as I thought I'm about to get him, I lost track of him. He kept disappearing and reappearing in another corner, which made me so tired. I finally gave up. Okay, I give up. Go back and start a new game. Hearing that, Jack stopped, but he just stood still. It didn't take me long to get Felix and Adrian, but it's not the same when it comes to Jack. Then all three had to go around the house together and find him. It wasn't until a while later that Jack came out from the master bedroom. He scratched his head and said, "Sorry, I hid in the closet and fell asleep. It was too warm and dark in there." At that time, I just found out that the closet in the bedroom has a recessed drawer. If you don't pay attention, you won't see it. Don't lie, I gasped. For sure you have just chased me around. But Jack firmly denied. My friends also joined in teasing me, telling me not to scare them. But if the person I'm chasing isn't Jack, then who was it? Since my friends did not believe me, I insisted that they return to the house. I will prove that there's another kid in the house, I thought. So the next night, the group went to that abandoned house again. Today, I am still a seeker. I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, I said aloud. For some reason, the house seemed colder and darker than usual. This time, my voice was echoing through the walls. The footsteps of Jack, Adrian, and Flix gradually faded away and disappeared. 98, 99, 100. I left the living room and started my gameplay. 10 minutes, 15 minutes passed, but strangely, I couldn't find anyone. Is there any chance at all they left the house? I thought irritably. I was about to leave when I saw a familiar shoe at the door of the laundry room. Those are Adrian's shoes. You're hiding so well today, ain't you? As my patience was running out. Adrian, where are you? Get out of here! I'm not kidding! I yelled angrily. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw his arm waving at me in the dark corner of the hallway. I rushed over, but Adrian ran away again, so I lost track of him. I was panting on my hips when I saw another arm waving at me from the top of the stairs. It must be Jack! My whole body went crazy, and Jack also ran away immediately. I just saw him running up the stairs, so I followed him. Unlike my expectations, the second-floor hallway was empty. I was standing sideways when I saw Felix's hand wave at me from the bedroom window in the distance. Out of the bunch, Felix is the slowest, so I'm sure he couldn't run fast if I chased him. I slowly approached, trying not to make a sound. But it suddenly dawned on me that something wasn't right. This window was a bit too tall for Felix. Is he standing on a chair? I pressed my face against the window to peer inside. Suddenly, Felix's head popped out of the doorway, causing me to jump and fall to the ground. But his face was strange. His eyes, blankly terrified, staring at me without blinking. I could hear my heart pounding. Felix? I called. Felix pulled his head and arm out of the window, and then I heard footsteps coming out. Oh my God, that's not Felix. Before my panicked eyes was a child. He has the same size, just like us, but with a wrinkled and yellowed face. His whole body was covered in blood, and he was holding a sharp knife in his hand. He laughed while walking towards me. Oops, you found me. Now it's my turn to seek. Then he grinned at me and started counting. I froze in fear for a few seconds, then immediately got up and ran at full speed. I wanted to get out of this house as quickly as possible, but as soon as I reached the stairs, I began to hear the heavy footsteps chasing me. Suddenly, I remembered the secret closet that Jack had hidden before. I hurried into the bedroom and lay there holding my breath. I could hear the sounds of that monster scurrying everywhere looking for me. Finally, due to fatigue and lack of oxygen, I passed out. I woke up to see myself in the hospital. It turned out that my parents and the police had been looking for us all night, and that they had brought me to the hospital. But my friends weren't that lucky. They couldn't come back. Looked like they were all lured and murdered by the monster. Later on, I learned that he was the mental patient police were looking for. Since he was as short as a child, he got through the hole in the back wall and turned that into his temporary shelter. His favorite thing to do is play hide and seek with children and then kill them. The most terrible thing is, until now, the police still couldn't catch him.
Karen arrived home at 3 a.m. The weekend business trip drained all of her energy. Even so, Karen still got up early to make breakfast for Anderson, her fiancé. For her, a sandwich and a morning cup of black coffee was a great compensation for the time away from home. As usual, Anderson was dressed in a neat suit and sat cross-legged in an armchair in the center of the living room. He is handsome, reserved, and has his own rules. Reading the morning newspaper was an example. Regardless of weekdays or Sundays, the first thing he does is always reading the newspaper, especially in recent days when there has appeared more and more missing people in the local area. Is anything new? Karen asked, placing the coffee cup in front of Anderson. Police have confirmed all the missing cases are related. They were all young girls found dead in their 23s. My age range, huh? Karen thought, with a shiver. Anderson, still focused on the newspaper, ignoring her expression, he added, "Oh, and all the murderers have something in common. They lost their teeth. How on earth can there be such sick people? The cases usually happen around 6 to 7 p.m., when everyone is on the way from work. The last victim was found dead on Sunday, the day Karen was on a business trip. Maybe if Karen wasn't away that day, the victim would be her too. Except for the sick murderer, no one knows for sure. Suddenly, the breath on the back of her neck startled her. Anderson had been standing behind her ever since. He hugged her from behind, kissed her cheek, and greeted her at work. All day, Karen couldn't put the images of poor victims out of her mind. She got home at 5 p.m. earlier than usual. Anderson is far from coming. When she got home, Karen went straight to the bathroom. Bubble bath with Epsom salt for a luxurious evening will erase all her troubles. But today is the exception. Despite being immersed in the warm water, Karen can't help but wonder, but why teeth? In such a chaotic situation like this, you never know when you would be targeted by the perverted killer. That scared Karen. Fear fluttered in her stomach, but at least she had Anderson, a fiancé who would protect her at any cost. Thinking like that, she calmed down a bit to start enjoying the evening. The steam from the tub rose up, making her vision and everything sink into illusion. Half an hour passed, and Karen noticed something was off today. Karen didn't know why, but she began to feel pain and discomfort all over her body. There's something unusual in the bathtub today. Salt grains. It's been so long since Karen put them in the tub, yet they didn't seem to dissolve at all. Instead, They poked at her, stinging. Karen reached down to the bottom of the tub, picking up a few seeds to look at. Oh my God, a tooth! She panicked, rushed out and flushed the water. Karen felt like she could throw up. All of them are teeth, jagged, covering the tub. Oh no. In her 23 years of life, Karen has never felt so scared. At that moment, she heard the entrance door open. Anderson is back. At this moment, Anderson's face this morning flashed through her mind. While he was reading the newspaper, he smiled. A strange, vicious smile.
I'd say the job was not too hard for me. However, the late-night customers were often not easy to deal with, and I met one on my very first time working the night shift. It was a summer evening. I was walking around the stalls, rearranging the items on the shelves. Suddenly, I saw a suspicious woman. She was wearing a huge travel backpack on her shoulder and looking around surreptitiously. It was odd that she just stood there for 15 minutes without buying anything. I felt rather strange, but didn't dare to question or get in trouble on my first day on duty, so I went to the clothing store and rearranged the items there.
Martha, a customer at the frozen meat counter needs help. Get there now.
That was Jonathan, the store manager, observing my job over the radio.
Copy that.
I said back and quickly moved toward there. Surprisingly, the one who needed assistance was the suspicious woman I met earlier. When she saw me approaching, she suddenly left.
How strange. What exactly is she looking for?
I frowned slightly and thought to myself, anyways, I still followed her. As she approached the knife counter, I decided to stop her.
Madam, what are you looking for?
My sudden question startled the woman. She immediately turned to look at me, giving me a forced smile.
I was looking for bread.
Bread? Hasn't she gone back and forth to the bakery a few times?
Bread is over there, in the dairy section.
I felt odd, but smiled and showed her the direction. Instead of saying thanks, she grimaced and left in anger as if I had just done something very rude. Suddenly, just a few aisles away from where I stood, a high-pitched scream rang out. I hurriedly ran over to find that a creepy woman was holding a camp knife and swinging around to scare everyone. She even almost injured a guest.
Jonathan, we're having a problem. Please come over here.
I said over the radio and quickly dialed 911. The woman was still standing there. Her head began to twitch with bloodshot eyes. Her mouth was watering and she was puffing quite hard.
Ma'am, please, put the knife down.
I tried to say in a calm voice, but that woman did not listen. She was still very fierce, her hand firmly grasping the knife.
Ma'am,
I repeated.
Shut up!
The woman shouted, pointing the knife at me. I was so terrified I stepped backward. At that moment, I noticed she kept scratching her neck as she held the knife forward. No one dared to get even one step toward the madwoman.
My baby!
Another woman spoke up. She seemed to be scared to death. The baby carriage was only 2 meters away from the crazy woman. Everyone was so petrified. But then the most unexpected thing happened. The baby in the carriage began to cry intensely.
Shut up! Shut up!
The creepy woman clutched her head and screamed. Then she turned around to see where the crying was coming from. The knife stuck down the item on the counter. Fortunately, Jonathan was able to rush out to push the carriage away and avoid the blade. The woman still seemed angry. She stared at Jonathan with bloodshot eyes.
The police are coming!
I shouted. The woman turned to look at me. As soon as I said that, I trembled in fear and stepped back. The woman with a creepy smile walked towards me. My whole body stiffened, and I couldn't move.
Police here. Put down your weapons. The police officer promptly appeared and shouted. The woman stopped and raised her head. She was still breathing heavily, looking madly at the police officer. Put the knife down, he repeated. The woman remained silent. Her eyes turned to look at me. I was so scared that she would aim it at me. I said, put the knife down. The officer said it again. I could see how hard he was trying to stay calm. The insane woman appeared defiant, clutching the knife firmly in her hand. She rushed towards me while raising the knife above her head. The woman fell to the ground, her whole body convulsing, her eyes widening from the electric shock. The officer quickly ran over with the help of several other guests, handcuffing her. I sat on the ground to stare at the mad woman who was taken away. My heart was pounding violently in my chest. After that unpleasant encounter, I became more alert. Whenever I saw a woman with a backpack on her back, the memories of that horrible night just flooded back again. The Game of Chance event at the newly opened Starbucks store downtown. Although Elena and I arrived very early, the area in front of the store was already packed with many people. Everyone wanted to be the lucky owner of the prize, which was a limited edition cup. While waiting for the host, Elena and I each ordered a cup of coffee. It was good as always. After a while, the event started. Dear customers, now it's time for me to draw the name of the luckiest and only guest to own this most beautiful cup. Who will be the lucky one?
That cup will belong to me.
Looking at the cup from afar, I silently wished that my name would be called. If I didn't win it, I thought I would negotiate and buy it back anyway.
And today's lucky customer is a guest named E-L-E-N-A! Elena! Please step onto the stage to receive this special cup.
Elena jumped for joy. I didn't know why, but while smiling at her, I was also a bit uncomfortable. On the way back, I asked to hold the cup for a second, but what she said got me so mad.
I'll never give it to you, Jade. That would also transfer my luck to you, and I got none left.
I went crazy and told myself that I would do anything to get that cup. At this moment, a truck came from afar. Elena was so happy about the limited edition cup that she didn't even notice. I was about to push Elena away, but in a flash of a moment, I thought about the cup and her arrogance, and so I just glared at her. The car crash sounded right next to my ears. Elena was now under the wheel of a truck. The Starbucks cup rolled out and stopped at my feet. I picked it up.
This has to be mine.
I turned to Elena and then ran off. The ambulance arrived shortly thereafter, but Elena was no longer breathing. After Elena's death, the entire Starbucks cup collection belonged to me.
Elena, if only you hadn't said those words, you wouldn't have taken that.
After moving to a new place and getting rid of Elena, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But things didn't last long. That night in my sleep, I heard Elena's voice. I woke up with sweat on my forehead in the dark room alone.
Maybe it was just a nightmare.
I thought to myself and tried to get back to sleep. During the following days, the same nightmare kept coming. I just closed my eyes and Elena's image appeared. After a few days of insomnia, my eyes were dark. I had to keep taking sleeping pills to get a full night's sleep, but nothing changed. That night when I fell asleep after taking some medicine,
The image of Elena appeared outside the door.
Chicky, you tried to push me. Have all of those cups. Give me back.
I tried to sit up but couldn't move. I struggled in despair. Elena squeezed my throat tighter. Just when I was about to suffocate, I was able to get up. During that night, I was so scared that I couldn't sleep anymore. The next morning, I collected all of Elena's cups and took them home to her parents. I wanted to tell them everything about how I knew the truck was coming but did nothing. But before I could say anything, Elena's mother cried and told me how Elena wanted to give me the cup for my birthday to surprise me.
Oh, Elena.
After hearing Elena's mother's words, on the way back home, my mind went blank. Suddenly, in front of my eyes was a girl holding a Starbucks cup with a happy face. Crossing the street, a high-speed truck was coming from afar. I didn't think much before screaming out and then running to push the girl away. But before I passed out, the last image was Elena's face smiling.
I work part-time in a local pizza shop as a delivery guy. It was Saturday night. My colleague had an unexpected break, so my boss asked me to cover his shift. Around 11 p.m., I got an order to the house on the side of the forest. This place is literally out of nowhere. It doesn't even show up on GPS. Well, it took me 45 minutes to get there. It was a rustic wooden house. Dang it! I took the pizza to the porch and rang the doorbell. I waited for a while, but no one appeared. So I rang the bell again. When I was about to call my boss to cancel the order, I heard footsteps in the house and the door opened. A well-dressed man stepped out. He just stood there, saying nothing, staring dead at me. Sorry for the late delivery. Anyway, here's your pizza. You don't need to tip me. He just stood for a moment, then flashed a weird smile. Okay, thanks for the pizza. Would you like to come in for the birthday party? I didn't want to come in and was about to refuse, but he continued. My daughter's party. Being bullied, no one came. Hey, if you feel uncomfortable, I totally get it. Poor this girl. I was in the same situation before, so I understood that feeling. I agreed to join the party. I followed the man into the kitchen. The house is so old that I can hear the wood floor creaking with every step. In the middle of the kitchen is a large dining table placed in the middle of the room. I was looking around. Suddenly a voice shouted from behind, startling me. Happy birthday! Seeing my cut face without a drop of blood, he seemed apologetic, joking. Sit here and wait. I'll go call her. 5 minutes, 10 minutes passed by. No one showed up. I walked around the dining to discover that there was a door in the corner of the kitchen. Being curious, I peered in. Oh my God, I saw someone in that 10 square meter room. Although I couldn't see his face clearly, I recognized the uniform. It was a pizza uniform, exactly like the one I was wearing. He was strapped to a chair and almost motionless. What's happening? I called out, hello? Are you okay? At this moment, the man slowly raised his head. His mouth was glued. He made gurgling sounds. I froze. It was Jack, the colleague that was supposed to cover this shift. I noticed his pant leg was crushed. Blood from there was still dripping onto the floor. I have to help Jack. We have to get out of here right now. But then I passed out. When I woke up, it was already dawn. The rain outside has also stopped. Happy birthday music resounded throughout the room. In front of me was a lot of food. The man was chopping something on the cutting board. My body went numb. The pain ramped up. Jack, where's Jack? Why did you do that to him? this point, the man didn't move, but his head slowly turned back. He calmly smiled and said, "You did nothing wrong. I just have a different taste in food." This time, I felt the pain in my knee hurt, burning so bad. My neck. I felt like dozens of eyes were staring at me from behind. I turned around and got jump scared. At the end of the corridor, and not only one, two, but dozens of mannequins lined up. Jessie giggled.
You're not used to these things? Take your time, and you'll love it.
Her expression made me feel embarrassed. Was the let the light off situation earlier also her joke? I thought. Then I was led down the hallway and stopped in front of an old door.
So this is your room. I hope you like it.
As soon as I entered the room, I felt extremely excited. Not only did Jessie keep the room clean, but she also set up a few mannequins in the corner to help me practice. Oh, Jessie, I don't know how to thank you enough. After chit-chatting for the whole night, I went to bed at around 11 o'clock. When I was dozing off, I suddenly heard the melodious music echoing back, seemingly coming from the first floor. Didn't Jessie say this place is so quiet? Why is there music at 2 a.m.? Unable to fall back asleep, I followed the music and was led down to the dining room. What the hell is this? As soon as I walked down the hall, I was horrified to see Jessie holding a mannequin and dancing passionately. I couldn't see it clearly, but in the dim chandelier light, I could see a mannequin's arm hanging loosely and being swayed by Jessie. I moved closer, intending to call out, but just then I froze. It's not a mannequin, but a human. Jessie's dancing with the torso of a corpse. Panic surges through me, my body shook with fear. I have to get out of here immediately. But when I was about to run, I accidentally tripped on something soft. Immediately a fishy smell hit my nose, straight to my brain. I realized my hands were smeared in mucus. You must be kidding me. In the darkness, I noticed 2 or 3 other mannequins lying around beside me. Well, they're not. Oh my gosh, they are definitely not mannequins. They are human corpses. I was falling to the pile of corpses. Suddenly my mind went blank, and everything quickly blurred in front of my eyes. Before I lost consciousness, I could still hear Jessie's voice say,
Say hello to your new friends.
Vanessa took a deep breath. The last time she was in this class, the students, including one named Nick, pranked her with snakes and scorpions to expel her from the class. Even so, the principal didn't agree to change class for her, for the reason that the homeroom teacher hadn't returned to work. The kids started to gossip right after she stepped in, like they weren't expecting that this substitute teacher would return. Vanessa put her bag on the table, tried to act like it was nothing, and started her lecture. The kids seemed to be scared after getting a warning from the principal. They didn't chit-chat in the class or make fun of Vanessa anymore. During her lecture, Vanessa didn't notice the staring eyes and mischievous smile from the kid named Nick. Nick's evil smile showed up when he saw the stone hit the window. The sound from the window got Vanessa's attention. She went to open the window and look down, but she saw no one. At that moment, Nick suddenly appeared right behind her.
Miss Van?
Said Nick. Vanessa looked at Nick warily, with her back facing the window.
I'm really sorry for the prank. I didn't mean to scare you at all. Here's a gift for you.
Nick handed the beautifully wrapped bow tie gift, smiling sincerely. Vanessa was very surprised. She hesitated. this naughty boy really meant it. So she took the gift.
Open it up,
Nick urged. Vanessa didn't want to disappoint her student, so she unwrapped the gift. A black snake came out, terrifying Vanessa to death. She stepped back, unsteadily reaching out for Nick. He almost gave his hand to her, but then it pulled back. And so Vanessa fell out the window. The loud sound startled everyone who heard it. The whole class was shocked and rushed out to the window. Vanessa lay on the cement floor. Red blood quickly spread to an area. Her mouth moved and her body twitched slightly. Before passing out, she saw Nick by the window still looking at her and said,
"Gotcha."
Vanessa was taken to the hospital. In front of the school board, Nick insisted that Vanessa fell on her own. Besides, no proof of Nick pushing the substitute teacher was found, so he easily got away with his prank. Even so, he deserved an adequate punishment for it. A month later, Vanessa hadn't returned, and all the students believed that she was so scared that she gave up her job. At this time, the class had been over, and Nick had to stay to do the cleanup. He carried a bucket and a mop in one hand, whistling a melody. The sound echoed in the hallway, causing Nick to stop whistling. He looked around but saw nothing but an empty hallway. The light suddenly flickered. Nick's eyes were wide open, for he saw something at the end of the hallway. It was a person with a high heel on one foot, bare foot on the other, wearing blood-stained white clothes. The person's head was down with loose and long hair. That person had the same outfit as Vanessa. The light turned off and on again. That person disappeared. Nick rubbed his eyes frantically, but still, he only saw an empty hallway.
It's impossible. She's still in the hospital.
Nick confronted himself as he kept walking. Laughter echoed through the air, startling Nick. He immediately turned around. At the end of the hallway, there was Vanessa's ghost. This time, Nick could see her face clearly, blood pouring from her eyes and mouth, falling onto her skirt, staining her white shirt. Nick got panicked. Vanessa had come back for his life. Nick quickly ran out of the hallway. He was truly scared. The footsteps still echoing panicked Nick even more. He ran down the stairs but bumped into the ghost and tripped several times in fear. Nick ran up the stairs to the exit, gasping for breath. When he raised his head, Vanessa's bloody face appeared in front of his face.
Boo! No! No!
Nick screamed. He jerked backward and then slipped. He fell upside down the stairs. His arms and legs are bent terribly, blood pouring from his nose and mouth. With excruciating pain, blood quickly splattered on the floor. The person was approaching Nick. He couldn't move his arms or any other part and could only stare blankly at Vanessa approaching. Vanessa wiping the blood from her mouth, coldly looking at Nick lying on the floor.
Gotcha,
she said. Then she stepped over Nick's body, leaving him lying in his own blood.
A few years ago, I was in a bad place. My guardian had kicked me out after graduation. I was so worried since I couldn't afford a place to stay at the time. A friend noticed and offered a place for me, since he has an empty room at home. I agreed. Looking back now, I wish I had just stayed in the street. He is a lovable guy, so his friends come to hang out often. Over time, they started to stay with us for longer periods of time, sometimes weeks. His friends were another group of brothers named Joe and Will. The big brother, Joe, is such a nice guy, while the younger one, Will, had a list of mental problems. He believed in the occult and anything of that sort. He would often look me in the eyes and tell me He could see how I would die. Once he even told me that I was possessed by a demon and I needed my soul cleansed. I never really believed in that stuff. Obviously, I was always looking over my shoulder and locking the door of my room. However, I forgot once. It was the day I had my night shift. I was so exhausted that I went to bed right after I got home. About 2 hours later, I suddenly felt something wet on my face. I tried to ignore it and convinced myself it was just a dream. After a while, I felt the wind blowing strongly against my face from nowhere. Feeling itchy, I opened my eyes to check time. The view made me tremble inside. It was Will. He was putting his face very close to mine, his face going wild and crazy. Turns out what I thought was a dream earlier was his drool and breath. I jumped up and pushed him hard. "What the hell is wrong with you?" His body shook like crazy. He couldn't stop muttering, "Demon, demon, demon." The next morning, I told everyone about that. They all knew he had these problems, but he was their friend. They helped him through the hard times and gave him a place to stay. Otherwise, he would be on the streets. I was always on guard around him after the things did to me. No one else seemed to be as concerned as I was. They should have been. One day I was sleeping and my phone rang. It was my boss. He asked if I could come into work an hour early. It was only 12 p.m. I was broke and needed to save money to get out of this house as soon as possible, so I said yes. I walked out into the living room to see my friend Joe sitting on the couch, while Will sat on the floor by the TV. I said goodbye and left for work. It was 5 p.m. when my shift at work was almost complete. When I was about to leave, a policeman approached me. "Hi, this is the police. Something happened at your apartment today and we need your support." I had assumed one of the brothers had been arrested for something illegal, but I was very wrong. The officer then informed me that Will had stabbed and killed his brother and my friend at around 1 p.m. I was shocked. I had just left the house an hour before it happened, and everything seemed fine. Our apartment was a crime scene, so I went to another friend's house to watch the news reports since the police wouldn't give me any information on the case. Over the next couple of days, the information began to be released. Will hadn't just stabbed Joe once, not twice, but over and over, and nearly decapitated the bodies. And my poor friend, he tried so hard to escape from that manic, but unluckily, he was bleeding to death. Will was caught hiding in the bushes near where I worked. I watched the news report in horror. We had known he was unstable, but this? He hadn't confessed anything, but the police found his notebooks. He thought we were possessed by demons, and this was the only way to free us. And my name? It is put in the last, except
for the coffee junkies. It's all about my cousin Wild, who announced that he loved coffee more than anything else in this world, especially Starbucks. He said that 2 cups of coffee a day is a must, or else he can't stand the entire day. I thought that it would be fine at first, until one day, Wild became out of control. That day, I went to Starbucks for an espresso before going to work. There was a long line of people already, so I had no choice but to wait. Well, it looked like everyone was tired on Monday morning. I could tell that based on their grumpy faces. When it was my turn, I asked for an espresso, but before I pulled out my wallet, someone crashed into me so hard I almost fell. It was Wild, my cousin. After not seeing him for a long time, I didn't expect such an awkward encounter.
Hey! Where's my coffee?
Wild raised his voice.
Sir, please wait a moment. A Starbucks employee named Bruce replied gently.
Bring it to me! Right now!
I was quite surprised to see him acting like that. Wilde used to be so gentle and a kind man. This was the first time I had seen him so angry. At this point, Wilde totally lost his patience, slamming the table, then grabbing the employee's collar. Bruce looked so confused as Wilde insisted that his order was ignored. Shelby, the store manager who was notified of the incident, rushed to the counter.
Sir, may I know your concerns?
Wilde pointed at Bruce's face and said to the manager,
This stupid dude forgot my order!
Bruce shook his head and looked at Shelby. Shelby gently asked Wilde,
Sir, what did you order?
Go and ask your silly staff!
Wilde yelled. Bruce pulled Shelby to a corner. This man has finished the 7th cup. That's too much.
Give me the coffee!
Wilde still screamed.
Sir, please calm down. It seems to be a misunderstanding here. Could I invite you into my office?
Shelby politely walked over to the guest.
No! Just bring my drink here! Right now!
Everything got worse when Wilde refused to leave and the customers in line started to get impatient.
Hey, Wilde, stop it!
I murmured, but he didn't seem to recognize me at all, which was so weird. At that time, another guy in Starbucks uniform walked out with my order. I was about to get the drink, but Wilde was faster. He grabbed the hot cup and shoved it in Bruce's face. Bruce screamed in pain, clutching his face, which was now burned by the heat of the coffee. Oh my God! The espresso I ordered was extremely hot. Everyone was shocked. After doing that horrible thing, Wilde stood panting with an empty cup in his hand. The manager immediately called 911 while others helped Bruce with first aid. Wilde was still angry and kept glaring at Bruce with hatred.
That stupid rat forgot my order!
Wilde returned to his seat after I dissuaded him, but his displeasure was still evident on his face. Bruce's burns were severe. Shelby allowed him to skip the shift to see the doctor. In the end, Shelby had to offer to compensate Wilde. Even so, he still grudgingly took the cup and went back to his seat. The coffee cups were brought out to Wilde one by one. He drank each cup in a single gulp, but that wasn't enough.
Bring me more! More!
His eyes quickly turned bloodshot, and he growled at Shelby. No one dared to stop him because he was still holding the porcelain cup in his hand.
More! More! More!
He just laughed and yelled. He kept drinking until they brought him the 10th cup. It didn't matter if it was iced or hot coffee. He just chugged the whole cup right away. It seemed he had lost all taste and sensation.
I want more coffee! I want more coffee!
He laughed as he grabbed Shelby, shoving the entire cup of coffee into her mouth. Even though the cup choked her, he still tried to force Shelby to swallow it. She would be suffocated by his damn actions.
Coffee! Coffee!
Wilde had gone totally insane.
Wilde, stop it!
I was terrified, rushing to stop him, but he just pushed me away. At this moment, the police promptly appeared to intervene.
Coffee!
Even when he got caught, he didn't stop screaming. Wilde was taken to the hospital for neurological treatment soon after. The Starbucks store also banned him. Bruce quit his job because of the shock, and I haven't seen him ever since.
1 week later, Wild's condition was improved, and after hearing what happened, Wild didn't recognize himself anymore. As for me, after that incident, I switched to drinking tea instead of coffee, especially chai tea. Horror story that haunts me until today. 10 years ago, when I was a 17-year-old girl, my mom asked me to babysit the neighbor's kid because they had to go to a party. Well, of course, I couldn't say no to her. However, the kid that I was supposed to babysit was 16 years old. His name was Tyler. He suffered from an intellectual disability, and people said that his mind was like a 5-year-old.
Hi.
I tried to be friendly, but Tyler gave me a really frightened glance. I mean, really frightened.
Goodbye and enjoy the party, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson.
I waved my hand as I closed the door. There were only me and Tyler in the house now.
So, I'm Tammy. Your name is Tyler, isn't it?
But Tyler didn't care at all. He only focused on finishing his painting stuff.
Tammy, could you please turn off the TV?
Okay. What are you painting?
I was curious. Tyler still didn't answer.
Can I join too?
Tyler nodded his head instead of saying a word. So we were both coloring and painting our own works of art.
Are you hungry?
I asked. Tyler nodded while painting attentively.
I'll make you something. What would you like to eat?
Up to you.
Tyler mumbled. So I went to the kitchen and prepared some sandwiches which were Tyler's favorite. When I came back, Tyler was no longer painting his picture. He was sitting there and mumbling.
Go out? I can't. Mommy won't let me. Can I? Where are you? Really? My babysitter?
Tyler?
I was a bit freaked out, though. After hearing my voice, he stopped mumbling.
Here, your sandwiches.
Tyler ran to the kitchen before touching the food. I guessed he was getting his favorite orange juice. At that moment, I had a closer look at the picture on the table. I guessed it was Tyler in the picture, but there were two of them in the same clothes. One looked normal with a smile, and the other, gosh, he had two scary dark eye sockets that gave me goosebumps. I ran quickly to the kitchen. Tyler was standing still, and there was broken glass pieces on the floor.
Don't move, Tyler!
I rushed to clean the mess. Meanwhile, Tyler was still standing emotionlessly, like he was a mannequin.
Tyler! Tyler!
I shook his shoulders in panic. I didn't scold or blame Tyler for breaking the glass, as I thought it was a harmless mistake. However, Tyler seemed a little bit different, like he wasn't himself anymore.
Tammy, TV remote!
He suddenly turned to me. That was the first time he looked me straight in the eyes, and I could feel the cold shiver running down my spine.
Sure.
There was news about a serial murder on TV. It was Tyler who was giggling at the news.
Tyler, you okay?
I was a bit freaked out now.
Yeah.
He replied without even looking at me.
Should I change to a cartoon channel?
I reached out to get the remote. He quickly gripped my wrist.
If you touch it, I'ma kill you.
He said cold-blooded. I quickly pulled my hand back. There was something strange and scary about him. Not only did he watch the murder news calmly, but he also ate a lot of snacks, which I was told was what he hated the most.
Tell me, bring me milk. Milk!
Okay.
I went to the kitchen to get the bottle of milk. While I was pouring the milk into the glass, something just popped up in my mind.
Tyler, you're lactose intolerant, aren't you?
My body was frozen when I saw Tyler standing in the middle of the room.
She knew.
No! Don't hurt her!
Shut up!
She got to kill her.
Tyler!
Tyler turned around, staring at me with his dark eye sockets. In his hand was a sharp knife.
Tyler, where did you get that?
I stepped back. Tyler didn't hear my voice anymore.
Tyler, drop the knife down.
I tried to keep calm.
No! No! You have to die!
That voice wasn't Tyler's anymore. And before he rushed over with the knife, I ran quickly outside and locked the door. I tried to call Mr. and Mrs. Wilson in a panic, realizing how frightened I was. They immediately left the party and called 911. When Tyler's parents came home with the police, Tyler was back to normal. No one believed me, no matter how many times I tried to explain. Even though 10 years have passed now, I still couldn't forget what happened that day. The day Tyler, the neighbor kid that I babysat, was replaced by his evil and cruel personality.